dominating Hollywood starting with Scarlett. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 51, First Victory. Before the Gia's Baked Beans canned advertising campaign, Tang got Jimmy's survey results. Ogilvy sent a well-known advertising planner, Ole Moss. He had planned many advertising proposals for companies on the verge of bankruptcy, and had served Pepsi and United Airlines. He was quite well known in New York. His creativity was very solid, all based on the positioning of the product itself. After reading the slogan he wrote, Tang immediately realized that this was a strong opponent. Because baked beans canned food is positioned as an everyday food, basically the only selling point is the taste. So in this advertising campaign, everyone must have worked hard on this. So Tang hand-painted several pictures overnight and asked Jimmy to prepare some materials. On the day of the advertising campaign, the two of them took Caden straight to Gia's building. Led by the receptionist, they walked into the conference room to wait, and at this time there were several representatives of advertising companies sitting inside. There was a nameplate in front of each table. Tang glanced at it and saw that there were both IPG advertising companies that he had seen last time and some advertising companies that he was not familiar with. Of course, Ogilvy and Mather was naturally among them. Right in the front row, the white-haired Ole Moss was sitting on a chair and reading the information. When Tang and the others sat behind the Supreme Creativity sign, the others immediately turned their eyes to them. Obviously, they were also very curious about the company that came up with that brainwashing advertisement. However, after seeing Caden, the eyes of the men present obviously stagnated for a moment. After looking at each other with their eyes, no one spoke. Everyone sat quietly in their seats and looked through the information, closing their eyes to rest. This advertising campaign was very different from the previous ones. Thomas and his team planned to determine the ownership of the advertisement on the spot because they couldn't wait any longer, and Gia's Baked Beans couldn't wait any longer either. If the creativity of $400,000 couldn't save this brand, then this brand would soon be abandoned by the company. So Thomas was under great pressure now. 10 minutes later, the receptionist came in and shouted, "Everyone, please follow me." Everyone stood up and followed the receptionist to the door of the president's office, finding a seat one by one. Ogilvy and Mather, "Mr. Ole Moss, your presentation time has come, please come this way." The receptionist smiled and politely invited Ogilvy and Mather to enter the office first. "Yes, Mom." Ole Moss stood up in a gentlemanly manner. Although his hair was white, he did not look old. He must have some kind of disease that caused his appearance. When he walked in with his team, everyone's heart was lifted. Jimmy and Caden were the same, but Jimmy chose to tap the ground with his leather heels to relieve his inner tension, while Caden stood behind Tang and stretched out her tender hands to massage his shoulders. She wanted to make Tang relax more, but after getting started, she found that Tang was unusually relaxed, as if he didn't feel nervous at all. So she didn't say anything, but just kneaded silently. This move made the representatives of other advertising companies jealous. Why did you bring a beautiful girl to massage yourself, while they could only sit on the bench and wait? Damn it! Whose young master is this? But soon everyone lost their temper and expressed their indignation towards Tang, because there was a sudden applause in the office, as if Ole Moss had used his unique creativity to convince Thomas and the senior executives of Gia's company. This undoubtedly increased the pressure on everyone, and Jimmy couldn't help but curse, "SHXT." But only Tang still closed his eyes and rested, leaning on Caden's bulging chest, as if he was relieving his pressure, but only Caden knew that Tang's muscles were not tense at all, and he remained relaxed. It seemed that even if Ole Moss successfully convinced Gia's company, he could turn the situation around. Of course, it can also be said that Tang has given up the competition with Ogilvy Advertising. But Caden felt that Tang would not give up. Whether it was daily contact or observation during the filming, he found that his boss had self-confidence and control desire far beyond ordinary people, and he was ambitious and would not give up his goals for a little difficulty. Maybe the boss has a way to solve the current situation? Regardless of what Caden thought, the others were indeed somewhat discouraged, and even relaxed their backs a lot. Some people simply went out to smoke. Not long after, Ole Moss's team came out of the office. Thomas personally saw them off and shook hands with him, looking happy to cooperate. This increased the anxiety of other companies. Although Gia's company did not say that it had been confirmed, from all indications, Ogilvy had already won. Then he went into 3 companies in succession, but there was no applause in the office, only silence. Until the receptionist appeared again. Supreme Creativity, it's your turn. Let's go. Jimmy was the first to get up. Tang opened his eyes, pulled his tie, and led the 2 into the office. In the office, the atmosphere was a little noisy. Thomas and Gia's senior executives were sitting on the sofa. Except for Thomas, everyone else was whispering to each other. Faintly, the words Ogilvy, classic taste, and mom's taste could be heard. Tang ignored the scattered voices and directly put the stack of papers in his hand on the shelf. After Jimmy sat down, he said, "Please be quiet." Huh? The senior executives who were talking were all stunned, feeling as if they were back in class. Only Thomas raised his eyebrows and said, "Everyone be quiet, let's listen to the ideas of Supreme Creativity. What else is there to listen to? I think Ogilvy has already won." Someone muttered in a low voice, and then shut up at the signal of the person next to him. Tang didn't get angry when he heard this, but smiled. "I know that Ogilvy's advertising creativity should be very good and make you excited. But the advertising industry is never short of better ideas. Why don't you empty your mind first and listen to new ideas?" Thomas nodded when he heard it. "You are right, Tang. So, let's start." "Okay, let's start with a scene of a mother and her child eating." The reason why Tang was so confident was, of course, because his creativity matched the product selling point of Gia's baked beans cans, and it was interesting, amazing, and eye-catching enough. We have to thank Heinz because this idea was exactly what they would use on their products in the future. When it was broadcast on TV, both the company and the audience praised it highly. After Tang's improvement, this idea has become more suitable for Gia's baked beans. Chapter 52 Creativity is King. The ad will start from a prehistoric cave, where a mother is cooking beans for her son with messy hair. They are all wearing the fur of wild animals, that is, primitive people. Tang began to explain the first picture, and Caden behind him lifted the white cloth to reveal Tang's hand-painted picture, just as he said, but more concrete. After waiting for a few seconds, Tang continued, "Then there is a Greek mother in a robe and her shepherd boy, still cooking beans in a wooden house." Caden turned the drawing paper and showed it to everyone. "Then there is Cleopatra and her little prince, cooking beans in the palace. Then there is the Queen of the Plains and her pioneer boy." The Queen of the Plains refers to the female pioneers of America. When this continent was first pioneered, they took on very important responsibilities. After that, through the 1980s and 1990s, until modern times, in an ordinary kitchen, the mother took out a pot of beans, and the child helped to scoop it out. The 2 ate beans together and smiled at each other. Tang said here, but did not end, but continued to let Caden turn the page. Thomas and the others were also very curious at this time, and all their thoughts followed Tang's narration. So the next moment they saw a shape of the moon on the new drawing paper. Tang didn't keep them in suspense. Then from the present to the future, in the kitchen on the moon, you can see the earth through the window. People are wearing future clothes, there is a strange bowl on the table, and a child takes off his astronaut hat and eats a bite happily. Excellent. Thomas' eyebrows were completely raised, and his expression was excited. Our lives are too hurried now. We are busy every day and never have time to be idle. We even have less time to have fun and chat together. But I think, a mother and her children will never change in this matter of dinner. Tang expressed the source of his idea for this creative idea, and then concluded, "So I think the slogan should be written like this, Chia Beans, the feeling that never changes." And the moment he finished the slogan, Thomas immediately applauded. "Great idea, Tang, you didn't let me down." Led by Thomas, other company executives also applauded, but this time they had already put aside the Ogilvy advertising idea and were completely immersed in Tang's idea. Tang smiled and bowed to accept the applause of the crowd. Jimmy also became excited and felt that there was a great chance of winning the advertisement this time. And Caden behind him simply had stars in his eyes, thinking that his boss was so handsome. After the applause, Thomas sat down again and said to the executives, "It's really difficult. Now we have 2 good ideas." The brown-haired man next to him said, "I think the slogan of Supreme Creative is better. It fits the positioning of our Gia's baked beans." However, someone immediately retorted, "But the slogan of Ogilvy's advertisement, classic taste, from Gia's, is not inferior to this sentence." But advertising creativity still depends on the form of expression, isn't it? Tang pretended to be kind and reminded him, a good creative form is the first factor to capture the audience. What Tang said is not wrong. Thomas frowned and fell into thought. After waiting for a while, he stood up and sent Tang out. Please wait in the meeting room first. We will make a decision as soon as possible. No problem. Tang politely said goodbye to them and walked out with Jimmy and Caden. In an instant, they saw the complicated eyes of many colleagues in the waiting area, as if everyone was surprised why the new company Supreme Creative could also receive applause from Gia's. Did they come up with some shocking new ideas? Tang ignored this and continued to enjoy Caden's gentle massage after entering the conference room. Time passed slowly, and those advertising companies finally finished all the presentations at 6 o'clock in the evening. The conference room became a little noisy because of eating and chatting. Fortunately, Thomas soon appeared at the door. Everyone. He walked all the way to the front of the conference room, nodded to Tang and Alain Moss, picked up the card in his hand and said, "Thank you all for coming to participate in Gia's advertising campaign today. I believe everyone is very tired, so I won't talk nonsense here." The conference room immediately became quiet. Seeing this, Thomas said seriously, "After listening to the ideas of 8 companies, we unanimously decided to let this company be responsible for the advertising of Gia's baked beans cans after high-level discussions." Everyone held their breath. Even among the Ogilvy advertising team who felt that they had won, there were young people who pinched their fingers nervously. Jimmy was just like them, not daring to breathe. As for other companies, it was even more so. Their eyes never left the card in Thomas's hand. Thomas smiled slightly, and without further delay, he said the name of the company. They are Supreme Creative. Ah. Why? Ogilvy actually lost. How is that possible? Is Supreme Creative's ad better? Will it still be a repetition of 3 sentences? For a moment, many advertising companies turned their heads and looked at the pitiful 3-person team of Supreme Creative, feeling unbelievable. Even the people in Ogilvy's advertising team looked at Tang with an unconvinced expression, except for Alain Moss, who was relatively calm, perhaps having experienced such moments many times. But in the advertising industry, creativity is king. No matter how glorious and prominent the old king was, it will become dim with the ascension of the new king. Tang stood up to greet all the questioning eyes, and walked to Thomas, stretched out his hand and shook his hand vigorously. "Thank you for Gia's trust. This is what you deserve." With Thomas' final word, the competition for the $400,000 advertising fee came to an end. When Tang and the other 2 walked out of Gia's building, Jimmy still felt like he was dreaming. "Before, I could only get a few thousand to $10,000 for an advertisement in Lion Advertising. Now, I got $400,000 just for negotiating an advertisement? It's too easy to make money." But think about it carefully. If it weren't for Tang's creativity, his big investment in advertising in New York, and his confident and accurate presentation, Gia's would never have given Supreme Creative this opportunity. After all, creativity is king, just as Tang said. It's just that Jimmy deeply felt the importance of this sentence at this time. The 3 of them walked down the stairs and were about to drive back to the company, but suddenly saw a simple and crude advertisement playing on the big screen in the square in the distance. "Gia Auto, your travel partner." The line was repeated 3 times, and each time it was a picture of a car and a beautiful woman, accompanied by a voiceover. This was obviously derived from the brainwashing advertisement of Supreme Creative, and there were more than one such advertisement. "What should I use to wash my hair?" "Use Kangne shampoo, it's easy to use." These slogans were repeated like garbage talk, trying desperately to brainwash the audience in a short time. But in Tang's opinion, this imitation was too clumsy and did not achieve the desired effect. But Jimmy did not think so. "Look, Tang, our advertisement is popular. All New York is imitating us." "Yes." Caden laughed and looked at Tang in amazement. He did not expect that such a simple advertisement would become a trend. "Maybe more cities, or even other countries' advertising industries will imitate us. There will be many such things in the future, so there is no need to be surprised." Tang smiled and put his hands in his pockets. "Let's go, we should do the next thing." Chapter 53 Priority Selection. Tang had been busy at Supreme Creative for a few days. During this time, his CAA agent Mike had been pushing him invitations to shoot various MVs. Unfortunately, Tang had no desire to shoot when he saw the names of those singers. What was the point of shooting a flopped song? Even if his MV was awesome, it would only raise the score from 30 to 70. So he had not accepted any shoots. Mike couldn't wait any longer, so he went to Tang's house to find him. "Mike, what are you doing here today?" Tang handed Mike a cup of tea. He didn't buy coffee at home, only various green or black teas. Of course, it wasn't the cheap tea bags like Lipton, but loose white tea bought specifically from Chinatown. Of course. Mike took a sip of tea and frowned, as if he was not used to it. So he put down the teacup and said, "A lot of singers have been looking for you recently, Tangda. They all want you to shoot MVs. Did you know that?" Tangda nodded, held the teacup with 2 fingers, looked at the tea leaves floating on it and blew a breath. "I know, Mike, but I said before that I'm busy recently." "No, Tangda, you should strike while the iron is hot. Now is your best chance." Mike persuaded patiently, "The senior management are waiting for your performance. If you can continue to perform like this, not only will your package price be further improved, but your popularity in the industry will also increase. At that time, there will be more and better resources for you." "Yeah, you're right, Mike." Tangda smiled, "But there is a prerequisite, right? I can still shoot great MVs, but to be honest, I don't think the singers you have found for me are very good." "Thank God." Mike touched his hooked nose. "Fortunately, you don't want to retire, so I came here specially to give you a list. Take a look." He took out a document from his briefcase and pushed it to Tangda across the table. Tangda picked it up curiously and found that it was the list of singers that CAA had recently received for package services. Where did this come from? Tangda looked at Mike with surprise. He didn't realize that this old guy could actually show him this kind of information. If the rival agency knew about it, it would be troublesome. Mike noticed his thoughts and explained, "It's not what you think. The singers on it have already signed the agreement. Of course, I can't show you those who are in the process of negotiating." "I see, so you want me to choose from the list." It was the first time that Tangda enjoyed such treatment. He didn't expect that just by shooting a MV, his status in CAA would be significantly improved. "Of course, although this is my personal decision, I really think highly of you. Maybe in the future you will break out of the MV circle and become a real movie director." Mike spread his hands. But Tangda sneered in his heart. Come on, if there was no instruction from the top, how could Mike have the guts to let him choose from the list? From the fact that he knew that Tone's creativity was not good, but he still chose to let Tangda suffer, we can see where Mike, the agent, leans in his heart. Did he think he hadn't asked Nelly and Kelly? What about deciding on a good director? Bullshit. Tangda even suspected that Tone joined CAA because of Mike's connections and his own idiotic aesthetics. But since he was still under his command and Mike thought highly of him, he didn't have to tear his face off. In the adult world, people greet each other with a smile and stab each other in the back. Tangda looked at the list, his thoughts swirling, while Mike recommended Tangda like a treasure. Ford Lotito, Country Style, debut album ranked 40th on Billboard, new album to be released soon. I think she has great potential. Marta Duffy, female rock, has an excellent voice. Previously, she was hovering around 30th on Billboard, new album plans to hit the top 10. Ledley MacDonald, rapper, from the UK, although she's out, but the top management is optimistic about her style, maybe she can attract a group of fans. Mike was rambling there, but Tangda turned a deaf ear to him, just scanning the list with his eyes until he saw a familiar name and a familiar photo attached to it. Avril Lavigne, what do you think of this singer? He interrupted Mike and asked. Mike raised his eyebrows and asked in confusion, She? She seems to be Canadian, hasn't released an album yet, said she sings rock, but I think she's pretty ordinary. Ordinary? Tangda really wanted to laugh out loud. If Mike saw him now in a few months, he would probably slap him. After Avril released her first album Let Go, she became a hit in the United States, winning the first place in the New Zealand album chart, the second place in the US Billboard 200 album chart, and the fourth place in the Dutch album chart. The global sales exceeded 16 million. In addition, the album also made Avril nominated for the Grammy Awards for Best Rock Female Vocalist, Best Pop Female Vocalist, and Best New Artist the following year. It can be said that she is a well-deserved rising star in the music industry, with a much higher gold content than Kelly Rowland. Only Beyoncé, who released an album in 2003, can compete with her. So Tangda said without any hesitation, let's pick Avril. What? Are you sure? Mike looked surprised. Do you want to look at other singers? No, I've already decided. Tangda looked at the familiar smoky makeup and long golden hair in the photo, and flicked his fingers lightly. She's the one. I don't understand, Tangda. Mike looked at his face with an expression of disapproval. You are a bit tasty. There are so many other famous singers. Why do you choose Avril? I think she is more pleasing to the eye and will be popular. What's the reason? Mike frowned, but then saw Tangda's firm eyes and shrugged. Okay, I won't interfere. Then what position do you want to take, director or photographer? Tangda shook his head. Why can't they be together? What? Mike was even more surprised. I said why can't a director and photographer be the same person? This was also Tangda's decision after thinking about it recently. Why should he let another person make him angry and take away his money? As long as he can shoot a cool enough MV, the singer and CAA will not care about this little thing. You heard me right, Mike. I plan to bring the director and the photographer. Just tell the top management. Mike didn't understand at all, but thinking about the feedback after Nelly's MV shooting, he could roughly understand why Tangda did this. Fortunately, Avril was a new and unknown singer, and this package should not cause her agency to protest. Okay, Tangda, you are so willful, but you have the capital to do so. Mike stood up. It's just that I hope the effect of this MV can reach half of the last time. Only in this way can you continue to be willful. Don't worry, Mike, I know. Tangda smiled and saw him off, but when the two walked to the door, Tangda remembered something again. By the way, Mike, I have 2 girls who want to participate in the MV shooting. They just need to play a small supporting role. He was talking about Cindy and Kaden, the 2 customer service ladies who were his next targets. It doesn't matter, you decide. After all, you are the director, right? Mike had no objection to this and handed all the power to Tangda. After Mike left, Tangda happily picked up the tea and took another sip. Look, isn't this connected? As long as I rely on the CAA platform to continuously improve my status and take on music videos or movies, I can continuously let the customer service ladies under my company show up one by one. Maybe at some opportunity, a girl will become famous. But now there is one more thing, which is to let Jimmy register another agency, which will be independent of Supreme Creative and not subject to Henry's constraints. Tangda has high hopes for it, so what should it be called? Just call it Angel Declaration Agency. The next chapter will be updated at 001, sprinting to the new book list. Chapter 54 Corporate Strategy. CAA acted quickly. Avril and her band were invited to the company headquarters to meet with Tangda. Because Avril wanted to know how to shoot her MV, she asked to meet Tangda to have a chat. Tangda arrived as scheduled, but when he arrived, Avril and the others were already sitting in the conference room. Tangda and Mike pushed the door open without knocking. As a result, Avril and a few others were throwing paper planes made of A4 paper everywhere, and there was even a paper plane flying straight at his face. Oh! Tangda stretched out his hand to block the paper plane, closed the door, and walked into the conference room. Hello. Tangda was wearing a black windbreaker with a white shirt inside and a melon-shaped hat on his head. He looked a bit like Leon in Leon, the professional, but more handsome. Hello, I'm Avril. Avril awkwardly put down the paper plane in her hand and introduced herself. She smiled cheerfully and her face was still in the classic smoky makeup. She showed her 2 iconic canine teeth and shook hands with Tangda, and then the other band members returned to their seats and introduced themselves. Charlie, bassist. Evan, guitarist. Matt, drummer. The 3 big boys were not shy, and they sat down after greeting Tangda. Let's talk about the filming of the MV. Tangda spoke first. Avril shook her head. I've seen your MV, it's great, but to be honest, I don't like it very much. She expressed her preferences quite directly, which was quite in line with her punk and rebellious music style. Tangda knew this, so he didn't get angry, but put his hand on his chin and asked, why don't you like it? Because I think the color is too heavy, I like brighter colors. Avril's hands danced as she spoke, as if she was going to take out her guitar and start singing in the next second. Hearing this, Tangda laughed. Avril, any MV must be shot in the style of the song. Of course, your song cannot be shot on the tone of Nelly. Avril immediately became happy. That's good. I hope to shoot it on a bright afternoon, with my band. Yes, together. The other boys nodded. Tangda pondered for a while. I have read your lyrics. The main thing you want to express is a rebellious attitude towards life. The audience of your songs is also young people and adolescents, so of course the MV must be shot on this style. As for the specific content, what do you think of the combination of shopping malls, street graffiti, and skateboarding? Some of the elements Tang mentioned were extracted from her original MVs, and some came from her future MVs. Avril's style is unique, and the punk rock full of youthful vitality is her most eye-catching feature. Her songs are not the kind that can be matched with any well-known MV. It is better to find them from her own future songs. Tang combined several of her future MVs, extracted various elements and classic images from them, and then perfected them into a new MV with his vision and aesthetics that far surpassed the times. In fact, the MVs of songs depicting youth should be as concise and clear as possible, so that young people can quickly accept them, and they should not be like the ones shot before, which have better texture but also lose the restlessness of youth. After hearing these elements, Avril and the band members nodded frantically. "Yes. Great, I like it, I want this kind of unbridled and crazy feeling. That's right, I can't wait to make a scene in the mall. Why, Evan, do you want to wear women's clothes? Shit, get out of here, Charlie, I must make you wear women's clothes." Several boys started to discuss enthusiastically, and Tang also chatted with Avril. Only Mike sat in his seat with a cold face, because he felt that Tang's idea this time was very boring, just piling up several elements together, not imitating movies, and there were no eye-catching images. Compared with Nelly's song, it was completely different. Although he admitted that these elements were liked by young people, in his opinion, Avril could not become a hit overnight. There were so many beautiful girls every year, how could a girl with smoky makeup become popular? So he did not have much hope for this MV. In his opinion, Tang was just too proud. He had not taken any job since he won the first place on the Billboard, which showed his proud mentality vividly. So seeing that several people were still chatting, Mike left a meeting room and went to the office of Brady, a senior executive of CAA. "What's wrong, Mike?" Brady was playing golf in the office at this time, and there was a female secretary holding a water cup next to him. Tang has confirmed the shooting of the MV with Avril. Mike walked to the side and took the golf club handed over by Brady. Brady was a middle-aged man in his 40s, with brown hair tied in a small braid, and looked quite unique. He picked up the water glass in the secretary's hand and took a sip. "What do you think of his idea?" "To be honest, I think it's a bit too ordinary." Mike asked puzzledly. "Why do you give him the first choice?" "There are so many well-known MV directors, Mr. Brady." Brady shook his head, hit the ball into the hole with a beautiful posture, and then explained, "Because of the company's strategy. Mike, we have grabbed a large piece of the film market, but those other brokerage companies are not vegetarians either, plus the boycott of those film companies, we can only go here for the time being, do you understand?" "I understand, Mr. Brady." Mike knew that he was talking about the current situation of CAA. After more than 10 years of rapid growth, the film market has been close to saturation, and their agency's income has also approached the upper limit. So the company has recently adjusted its strategy, hoping to repeat the success of the film market in the music market. "Do you know how many singers release albums in New York every year?" Brady paused and said a number, 344. This is just New York, not to mention other cities and other countries. And this number is growing every year. A large number of new generation singers are emerging, and the sales of the record market are also growing rapidly. Mike, we at CAA must seize this opportunity. So music production and MVE production are CAA's next strategy. Although we have a large number of film teams, their salaries are too high and clients will not agree. Therefore, next, we need to have a large number of talents in music production positions to create the most professional production packaging services. This business requires several leaders. Mike finally understood Brady's intention, but he was still a little surprised. But Tang has only shot 2 MVs. Can he be a leader? Brady shrugged. Of course he's not the only one, there are others in this plan. So, Mike, it depends on his performance in the future. If he can maintain a good standard for each song, then he will be one of the leaders in the future. But if not, his priority will naturally be withdrawn. Understood. Mike nodded, but he had already sentenced Tang in his heart. Picky, stubborn, arrogant, and always likes to control everything in his own hands. In his opinion, such an MV director only needs to make a mistake once, which is enough to make him completely silent. So it's time to look for a few more MV directors. If the future leader comes from his own company, it will undoubtedly be a huge improvement for the agent's status. Maybe. Mike looked up at Brady, who picked up the golf club and continued to swing. Maybe he can also sit in this position in the future. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 55, Punk Spirit. No matter how much Mike disliked Tangda, the MV for Avril's new album Let Go, the first hit song Complicated, had already started filming. This was also Tangda's first MV as a director and photographer. The lighting and prop masters were all familiar faces, Noda and Jeff, who had previously filmed Ellie's new song with him. They didn't feel strange when they learned that Tangda took on the duties of director. After all, if a more powerful director was replaced, the two of them might have a big quarrel on the scene. But Jeff and Noda had no doubt that Tangda would definitely be the one who would win the argument. After all, the two of them had already experienced the horror of this guy. Because of this, the preliminary preparations for this shooting went smoothly, and everyone did things neatly and at attention according to Tangda's instructions. When Cindy and Kaden appeared on the set, they also followed the boss's instructions and only claimed to be models of Angel Declaration Company, not saying that Tangda was their boss. However, as soon as the two of them appeared, their looks attracted the attention of everyone present. Even the members of Avril's band couldn't help but turn their eyes in this direction. Luckily, Tangda was at the scene. Whenever the men made any unusual movements, he would pick up a microphone to dispel their thoughts. Not long after, the filming officially began. The first shots were actually quite simple. Several members of the band were chatting on the street, and Avril was riding a skateboard on the street alone to play graffiti. However, the attitudes of the several people were obviously a bit lazy, and their bodies were loose. Perhaps they felt that this MV was just shooting daily life, and they didn't need to work hard to perform. However, Tangda's requirements for filming were very strict. His requirements for camera movement were to move from the skateboard to Avril, then pass by her friends, and finally to the graffiti wall. So if Avril took the wrong route or the band members had the wrong expression, he would repeat the shot. But this made Avril and others feel very depressed. In her mind, she felt that the simpler the MV, the better. As long as she could show the happy atmosphere of the few people, it would be fine. There was no need for such trouble. So she couldn't help but say, Tangda, why don't you just start with my hand? If we keep shooting, we might spend the whole morning shooting one shot. I've seen other people shoot music videos, and it doesn't have to be so complicated. Tangda sat in front of the camera. You also said it was someone else's music video. Avril, me, not someone else. But why are you always entangled in one action? Isn't it different if you shoot it separately? Of course it's different, completely different. Avril, it's a pity, I thought you were a different girl. What? This sentence made Avril feel a little strange. Tangda stood up and said, I mean your songs are punk, but you are not that punk. Bullshit. Avril directly raised her middle finger, trying to express her punkness. Several other boys also rushed over. Shit, what are you talking about? The crew didn't know what to do, and subconsciously protected Tangda. Even Cindy and Kaden came to Tangda. Seeing that the conflict was about to escalate further, Tangda still said to himself, you are now a shitty band that is not punk at all. Do you want me to say it more harshly? Why do you say that? FXXK. Avril pushed Evan away, her expression like an angry wildcat. Because you don't have the punk spirit. You are not extreme enough, you are always compromising. Just like you, Avril, just because a few shots make you feel tired, you think you should be lazy. FXXK. If the punk spirit is like this, then why did you insist on using noise to express your dissatisfaction with the society? Tangda's voice gradually became louder, and you are all born in a pampered family, you can play guitar and bass at a young age, and you can even form a band. Do you have anything to do with punk? Do you think you are punk just because of 2 lines of lyrics? It's really ironic. If the group of people who promoted punk jumped out of their coffins, the first thing they would do would be to put you in the coffin. You don't understand it all, Tangda. You are the one who doesn't understand punk. We are using songs to express our attitude. Punk is rebellion. Avril threw out a middle finger with both hands, and others shouted, yes, punk is rebellion. It is against the mainstream. Tangda sneered, so, Your way of going against the mainstream is to be lazy? Is that how you treat your work? If it were a baby, it would jump out of the stroller and shoot you all with a gun. I am very attentive. Tangda, whether it is the song or the MV. Avril bit her lip, and her voice was not as loud as before. Just talking. Tangda sneered. Avril came to him and picked up the skateboard. Fskskyow. I will prove it to you. Then start shooting. Perhaps because of the competition between the two sides, no one was lazy and skated this time, and the progress of the MV quickly entered the scene of the big fight in the mall. Here, Caden and Cindy were transformed into clothing store clerks and McDonald's clerks respectively. Tangda increased the roles of these two places. Although they were always behind the band members, their faces and movements were not blocked and they were clearly shown. Tangda even designed a few small movements for them to cooperate with the band. Sometimes, if you want to make a supporting role stand out, you don't need too many shots. Often, a unique and distinctive action is enough. After shooting the shopping mall scene, the band's performance scene was entered. In this segment, Tangda talked more. Avril. You are in the wrong position. Don't always look forward. Can't you see where the camera is? Evan, don't be a shy boy. Show your flamboyance when you are looking for girls at the school dance. No, do this again. You even got the rhythm wrong. It's no use giving me the middle finger. Avril, my ears are a ruler. Don't think I can't hear it. And you extras. Cheer up. Get out if you bow your head again. Tangda not only had to manage the camera images, but also the order on the scene. However, even so, no one could hide from his eyes. He seemed to be a god in the sky with unparalleled control over the crew, and any small mistake could not escape his reprimand. However, it was precisely because of this that Avril looked at him much more often than before the quarrel. Tangda suspected that she wanted to wait until the filming was over before she and her companions put sacks on themselves. It was not until 6 o'clock in the afternoon, before it was completely dark, that today's scenes were finally filmed. Finish. After Tangda shouted this word, everyone breathed a sigh of relief, feeling that the sword of Damocles above their heads had finally disappeared. However, when Tangda shouted that they would continue tomorrow morning, everyone took a breath of cold air again, feeling that the rope around their necks was tightened again. Just as Tangda sat back in his chair, resting and drinking water, Avril suddenly came over. Chapter 56 Gia's Advertising. Avril didn't say anything, and sat directly on the steps next to Tangda. The cold evening breeze blew on her chest, blowing up her thin short t-shirt, revealing her beautiful collarbone. Tangda tightened his clothes and asked, "Why don't you go back with the band? They live in Manhattan, not on my way? How about you? The Bronx. It's on my way, can you take me home?" Tangda raised his eyebrows and turned his head to look at Avril. Her slightly immature eyebrows and eyes looked particularly blurred under the reflection of the dim sunset behind her. "I thought you would hate me." Tangda shrugged. "Why should I hate you? You are right." Avril shook her head. "We are not that punk. We live a stable and worry-free life. We curse the society and the government every day, as if we are speaking for punk. But I know that this is just fake punk. The real punk is long gone." Tangda didn't expect that his words would actually call Avril emo, and now he began to analyze himself. Avril continued, "I just hope to express my attitude through songs. I don't like being constrained by others. Do you understand that feeling?" "Wait a minute." Tangda frowned. Why did he feel like he was talking to her? Is their relationship that good? Or does this girl just want to find someone to talk to? But it doesn't matter. As a director, he does have the obligation to comfort his actors. Don't be so discouraged, Avril. I understand what you mean. In fact, you can see yourself clearly now, and you are not afraid to tell others your true feelings. This is the punk spirit. You did it, expressed yourself, and didn't care about other people's eyes. It doesn't matter whether it's punk or not. Thank you, man. Avril smiled and stretched out her hand. Tangda bumped fists with her. In his sight, her face looked much softer because of the reflection of the sunset. After the crew officially finished work, Tangda took her home. Near her street, Tangda watched Avril wave and turn around, her slender figure slowly walking away, then got back into the car, sniffed the lavender scent in the car and smiled. The next day, Avril's new song MV was filmed until 6 p.m., and Tangda asked CAA to increase the budget again. Of course, the negotiation of this part of the budget took 2 hours. Even though Avril herself agreed, her agent and music company argued for a while. They felt that such a MV should not cost too much money, but Tang argued and said it was necessary. Fortunately, Tang's previous resume played a role. The MV ranked first on the Billboard, and 2 of the top 3 MVs in the half-year annual inventory made Avril's company feel that it was worth a gamble. So after a while of wrangling, the additional budget was finally transferred to the CAA account, allowing Tang to continue filming freely. And no one refuted Tang during today's filming, and Avril was completely different from yesterday. She was so gentle that even the other members of the band felt that she seemed like a different person. Evan and his team naturally couldn't make a fuss without a leader. In short, the shooting was completed smoothly. After the MV was finished, Avril asked for Tang's phone number. I don't know what she wants to do. 3 days passed quickly, and Tang completed the shooting of Gia's advertisement during this time. In terms of actor selection, he chose Cindy and a little boy actor. Because Cindy's image and temperament are more in line with the gentle mother type, and Caden looks more like a daughter. After the shooting was completed, the advertisement was edited by the post-production company at the fastest speed and sent to Gia's company. After watching it, Thomas praised it and decided to immediately launch the advertisement on Friday night. Time quickly followed the sunrise and sunset to 7 o'clock on Friday night. Housewife Desha was sitting on the sofa at home, writing down the daily food she needed to buy for the next week in a notebook. In the United States, each household does not go to the supermarket to buy things every day, but waits until the end of the week and drives directly to the supermarket to buy the next week's quantity at one time. This is also the oil on which membership supermarkets such as Sam's Club survive. So Desha has been thinking about what else the family needs, so as not to find something missing when she comes back after buying it. At this time, Fox TV suddenly played an advertisement. Desha was about to pick up the remote control to turn down the volume, but then she suddenly found the commercial quite interesting. Because on the TV, a young mother in a beast skin coat was cooking beans for her child. Beans? Well, it seems like I haven't eaten them for a long time. Desha nodded and thought she could add beans to her shopping list, but she couldn't think of a brand to buy for a while, so she chose to continue watching the commercial. After the scene of the prehistoric mother and child happily eating beans ended, the scene changed to a Greek mother and a shepherd boy. Desha was interested and watched the TV intently. The warm scenes in the commercial reminded her of the time she had spent with her children, but as the children grew older, such happy times had been replaced by silence and estrangement. She hadn't talked to her children for a long time. With a sigh in her heart, Desha experienced the Queen era, the Pioneer era, the 1980s and the 1990s with a commercial. Until she saw the picture of a mother and her child eating beans together in modern society, she couldn't help but purse her lips, turned her head to look at the cold living room around her, took off her glasses and rubbed her dry eyes. Coincidentally, at this time, the advertisement had finished playing the last scene in the universe. As the child picked up the spoon, the camera finally fell on the red and white can next to it. A line of advertising slogans slowly appeared. A magnetic and gentle female voice read, "Chia beans, the feeling that never changes." Chia beans. Oh, I really miss it. Desha finally knew the brand of this can of baked beans, but it also brought back more memories for her. When her child was still young, she also ate Chia's baked beans with her child like the mother in the advertisement, but now this can of baked beans that disappeared from the table seemed to reflect the relationship between the two. Desha picked up a pen and wrote down the name of Gia's baked beans in a notebook. Buy a few cans, maybe Jerry will like this. It was also on this night that countless people in all states of the United States saw this advertisement on TV, including mothers, fathers, and children. Some of them were moved by the advertising slogan and had the urge to revisit this classic can of baked beans. So the next day, the cans of Gia's baked beans in major supermarkets were sold out, and even out of stock in supermarkets. Even the Gia Group itself did not expect this to happen. Thomas could only rush to the factory and personally supervise the production line of the product to meet the needs of major supermarkets as soon as possible. Although he was tired, his face was always filled with smiles. He wished that there would be more such things. And major advertising companies also held emergency meetings because of this advertisement. Chapter 57 Secret Targeting. IPG Creative Advertising Company. After a group of people gathered around a round table to watch the advertisement on the big screen, the creative director Sig put his hands on the table and clenched his fists, and said in a deep voice, "We are now challenged. Figgis, you tell me." The sales representative Figgis said seriously, Since this advertisement became popular, the sales volume of the Gia's baked beans brand has tripled, and now even several product lines have been expanded. And we learned that they have signed an advertising cooperation agreement with Supreme Creative for 3 consecutive years. In addition to Gia's, there is also Heinz, and they have also signed a 3-year advertising contract with Supreme Creative. That is to say, the 2 big pieces of cake in our food advertising business have been taken away right under our noses. That's right, Heinz and Gia's were previously handled by IPG for advertising creativity, but it was obvious that they did not do a good job, and they did not compete with Ogilvy and Supreme in the advertising campaign. But this is not the most fatal thing. The most critical thing is that the top companies in the food industry in the United States have begun to notice Supreme Creativity, and some companies have expressed their willingness to cooperate with it. As far as I know, brands such as Dove, Kettle Potato Chips, and Lay's Potato Chips have contacted them. Where did you get the news from? From Supreme Creativity. Ross, the head of food advertising opposite, asked. His expression was the most uneasy among all the people, because each name was a project that his company was currently responsible for. If these brands really chose to cooperate with Supreme Creativity, wouldn't he be left with nothing? So he especially hoped that Figes would give him a positive answer. Unfortunately, Figes shook his head. These are all what I asked from the business teams of various brands, but you know, they are just mouthpieces for the top management and cannot change the decision. So if nothing unexpected happens, when the cooperation period of these brands expires, we will inevitably face fierce competition from Supreme Creativity. Sig tapped the table with his fingers, making a noise, drawing everyone's attention. This matter is a matter of life and death. The food industry is the most important sector of our company. Although we have lost some customers before, they often only take one-time cooperation. But this time is different. Ross, they have signed an annual cooperation agreement with Supreme Creativity. What does this mean? I don't need to say more, you all know it. This is taking food from our mouths. It is intolerable. So, the board of directors has decided that everyone in the food department will reduce their year-end bonus by half this year. Listen, if you let Supreme Creativity take away another customer, I will cancel your bonuses. Let you all get out. Do you understand? Yes. Sig acted decisively and directly informed the top management of the decision. Everyone's nerves were tense when his eyes swept over them. The planners in the food department were of course as if they had lost their parents. People in other departments were gloating and looking heavy-hearted. Fortunately, Supreme Creativity only took away the cake of the food department. Otherwise, if it was my department, wouldn't my year-end bonus also be reduced? All of the workers present had the same thought. Sig looked at the people in the conference room and felt that the air was about to solidify into a solid. So after he finished speaking, he asked them all to leave, leaving only Figs and Ross. Figs, Supreme Creativity has been very fierce recently. I want you to investigate this company carefully, including its founder, investors, and current scale. In addition, Sig paused for a moment, lowered his voice and said slowly, buy off some of them. I want to know their movements. It would be better if I could know their creativity in advance. But what conditions should we offer, Sig? Figs didn't dare to make a decision on his own. Conditions? Work, position, money, anything as long as he's interested. No problem, leave it to me. Figs nodded and agreed. After Sig finished explaining these things, he looked at Ross who was frowning. I don't care what you do, I only care about this year's performance. You go in person for the next customers, we can't accept the loss of any more customers. Understand? Understand, Sig, I will strictly control the creative department next, let them carefully study the brand company's business philosophy and products, and produce advertising plans that meet customer needs. That's not the point. Ross, the point is the new form. New creativity. It must be a hit. Understand? We haven't had an advertisement like Gia's for a long time. Analyze each picture for me. Learn it. Understand? Understand, understand. Ross walked out of the meeting room with sweat all over his head, tidied his clothes, and returned to his department with a stern expression. At the same time, Lion Advertising Company, Apollon and Maroney, as well as 2 newly hired advertising planners, also saw the advertisement. Supreme Creativity? This name is really arrogant, but the idea is good. Maroney took a sip of coffee and looked at the 2 young white men in front of him. Phoebe, Torian, Can you come up with such an idea? I don't think it's difficult. Phoebe looked confident, with the energy of a newborn calf who is not afraid of a tiger. We can make some minor changes to his idea and use it on new customers. Torian looked more rational, wearing glasses like a science and engineering man. Very good, then go for it. The company has received a lot of small and medium-sized customers recently. I will divide the opportunities among you equally. Whoever can do the best will get a bonus of 3% of the entire project. Understood. The two young men walked out happily. Maroney turned around and looked at Apollyon with a boastful look. Look, they are the talents the company needs, not like Don and Jimmy who are asking for too much. Apollyon nodded. They do look very confident, which is a good thing. Don was also very confident at the time. But are you sure they can come up with a better idea than this? Although his directing skills are not very good, he is at least an old assistant director who has been immersed in Hollywood for many years. He can still see what is good and what is not, and how difficult it is. Anyway, he couldn't think of any picture or sentence in this advertisement no matter how hard he tried. He felt like he had no idea where to start when faced with the creative ideas given by Tang. Maroney shrugged. It doesn't matter. Anyway, our current clients are not big brands like Gia's, right? But Apollon, will the cigarette brand you mentioned really let us participate in the advertising campaign? Of course, their person in charge and I are old acquaintances. I am sure I can get this opportunity. It will be up to you then, Maroney. Don't worry, I will take Phoebe and Torian to get this advertisement. That's good. I'm going to the crew as an assistant director recently. I hope to see your success when I come back. Of course. Tang and the others will regret leaving this company, I promise. Thanks to 666, 20220214180439434, and Insei Shen for their rewards. Chapter 58 Time Cigarettes. Tang was discussing a new project with Jimmy in the conference room. Look, these are all new clients' information. Wow. So exciting, we've become famous in one battle. Jimmy couldn't sit still at all. He rested his butt on Tang's desk, unbuttoned his shirt, and excitedly showed Tang the brand companies he had contacted in the past 2 days. Well, they're all big brands. Tang raised his eyebrows. He actually saw Coca-Cola in it. It seems that Gia's advertisement has indeed attracted the interest of many big companies this time. It's a pity that they are just consulting and have not finalized a cooperation. But it doesn't matter. Anyway, they use this creative idea to prove a point. As mentioned in the company slogan, they are indeed the top creativity in the United States. So other companies also want to try whether the supreme creativity can save their own sluggish products. But Tang was not blinded by this kind of empty consulting and information. He threw away most of the papers in front of him, leaving only one. However, unlike Jimmy's expectation, Tang actually chose a cigarette brand this time. Why? Tang? Why don't we continue to work in the food industry? Jimmy had never expected that Tang would choose this. Although the Shiguang brand cigarettes have a high market share, since the United States issued a report on smoking is harmful to health in 1964 and fined the tobacco industry more than $360 billion, the industry has been tightened every year. And in 1970, the United States had banned tobacco ads from appearing on screens, so now the ads run by tobacco companies do not contain tobacco at all, and are all promotions for their own brands. And they are all very cautious, and the relationship with the agency advertising company has become stable, and they will not easily change people. However, Shiguang Brands is an exception, because their contract with the agency advertising is about to expire, so there's this advertising campaign. But Jimmy thinks this is just a cover, and the agency advertising company must have consulted with the senior management of the tobacco company. If the creative gap is not big, they will definitely continue to win the 3-year advertising contract. Seeing Jimmy puzzled, Tang picked up the page and explained while reading, because we want to expand our business. Jimmy, do you know why companies in other industries don't come to us? Why? Because they think that the only industry we are good at is food. Tang looked directly at Jimmy, but we are not, we just happen to catch up with Gia's order. So we want to break this impression. Jimmy frowned, thinking. Yes, we want to send a signal to the outside world, telling them that supreme creativity is not only good at food, but also good at other categories. As for why we chose tobacco companies, do you think it is easy to advertise in this market? Of course it is not. Every time I see an advertisement, it will remind me of my health. Jimmy saw it clearly and directly pointed out the disadvantages of advertising for this type of product. Yes, that's right. Advertising in the tobacco industry is difficult, so we want to do it. Tang slapped the paper on the table. This is more in line with the concept of supreme creativity, isn't it? The top creative provider in the United States. Jimmy repeated the slogan. Tang smiled. Yes, that's right. We dare to do what others dare not do, and we do it better than others. Isn't this the best advertisement? Yes, you are right, Tang. I understand. Jimmy was happy again. Then you must have an idea. Unexpectedly, Tang shook his head. No. What? This is not like you. Tang. Jimmy opened his mouth wide. Hey, men, don't worry. Tang stood up and patted his shoulder. Although I don't have a specific idea yet, I already have a few ideas in my mind. Creativity is not that fast. Let the inspiration fly for a while. Tang circled his fingers on his temple, then turned and walked out the door. When he walked to the door, he suddenly turned around and asked, by the way, Jimmy, which advertising company was the old agent of Time brand? IPG, an old rival. Jimmy felt strange when he thought of encountering the same company's advertising campaign 3 times in a row, as if they were enemies. But Tang didn't care. He opened the door and walked in, saying, IPG, it seems that they are really unlucky. Yes, it's really bad luck for companies like you to meet you. Jimmy agreed with a smile. After Tang left the company, he went to the customer service area and mingled with a group of girls. What he liked most now was to listen to the girls chatting with him in a gentle and charming voice, and then tell dirty jokes from time to time to make them laugh, and then look at those excited breasts. After Tang left the company, he took a taxi directly to the bar. The reason for coming here was naturally to meet a beautiful woman. Ding-ling-ling. Pushing open the door of the bar, what came into view was the dim bar counter and the light yellow lights. It was not yet nighttime, and the bar had just started business. Tang walked a few steps inside and saw the long straight golden hair next to the bar counter. Avril. He greeted her and sat next to her. The bartender who was wiping the glasses immediately asked, Sir, what would you like to drink? One of your specialties. Okay. Avril turned to look at Tang. You're late. Why, do you find it hard to wait for a handsome guy? Avril was amused by this. Bullshit, Tang, you're so shameless. Isn't it? Am I not handsome? Tang put his face close to Avril. She did not avoid him, but looked at him straight. This distance even allowed them to smell each other's scent. It was still lavender, strong, but not erotic. The two were silent for a while, and fortunately the bartender brought the glass to Tang. Tang picked up the glass and took a sip, then raised his eyebrows. This wine is good, bartender, what's it called? Warm roast. The bartender replied with a smile, and then turned to the other end of the bar. Warm roast. Tang muttered the name of the wine, and felt that an inspiration flashed through his mind. Avril didn't bother Tang. She just drank silently, because she knew this state. She used to be like this when she was in school. Classmates said she was like a fool, but she was just thinking about how to write lyrics. Fortunately, Tang's silence didn't last long, and he recovered after a minute. What did you think of? Avril was a little curious. She felt that Tang was very mysterious, and he had a temperament that was not very approachable, just like when he was on the set. But this made her want to explore more deeply, because rebellious people don't follow the rules. She liked Tang's boldness, uniqueness and earty words when he was scolding people, which was very real, and made her feel that she and Tang were the same kind of people. Nothing, just thought of a good idea. Before leaving, I told Jimmy to let the inspiration fly for a while, but the bartender's words directly made the inspiration land. He thought of what the main selling point of Time brand should be. Chapter 59 Punk Fever. Putting aside the creativity of the Time card, Tang turned to Avril and asked, Why did you ask me out? Is it just to drink? Avril shrugged and gently pushed Tang. Why, no? Do you need a reason to drink? That's right, but are you an adult? Of course. I'll be an adult this year. Tang smiled silently and agreed with Avril's rebelliousness. The two drank a few more glasses. During this time, Avril talked to him about her recent life, the band's daily work, and her new album songs. Those bitches, I must prove to them that I am the best. She was talking about those girls in her school who gossip about others behind their backs. According to Avril, They were the cheerleaders of the school basketball team. A group of girls were jealous of those boys. So she directly called them bitches, without hiding it at all. But this was in line with her rebellious character and her songs. Tangda didn't feel disgusted and even cursed with her. After waiting for an hour, the sky gradually darkened, and various warm lights became the main theme of the night. After the two finished drinking, Tangda took a taxi to send Avril back to his neighborhood. He wanted to leave directly, but seeing her drunken appearance, Tangda was afraid that the girl would get drunk in the bushes halfway, so he helped her walk to her home first. However, when passing a small road, Avril opened her mouth and looked like she was about to vomit. Tangda hurriedly pulled her into the bushes next to her and patted her back to help her breathe. With your alcohol tolerance, you should drink less in the future. Avril shook her head, stood up, and looked at Tangda with a slightly red cheek, wondering, have you never been drunk before? No. Tangda tilted his head, I can drink well. Then, how about this? Avril pushed Tangda directly against the wall, put her face in front of his eyes, and then grabbed down with her right hand fiercely. Tangda immediately took a breath of cold air. Your grip is a bit too strong, girl. Do you feel a little tipsy? Avril relaxed her right hand, as if she was rolling a walnut. A little bit. Tangda raised the corner of his mouth and looked at her with a smile. Avril looked at Tangda's lips with a dazed look, then stood on tiptoe and sent herself up. The moist breath from Tangda's mouth went straight to his heart. Then she directly unbuttoned her jeans, and then stretched out her white index finger to get into Tangda's belt. Tangda took a breath of cold air for the second time, but this time it was comfortable. You are playing with fire. He looked at the dimly lit streets around him, and a different kind of excitement came to his heart. This scene was not unfamiliar, and it even appeared many times in his previous films. However, when he became a part of this play, he still had to sigh how much the environment stimulated people. Playing with fire? I don't just want to play with fire, director, I want to play with more. Avril reached out her hands to hug Tangda's neck and stroked his back. The feeling was gentle and rustling. Okay, then I'll do your thing. But just as Tangda picked up Avril and turned to press her against the wall, a dog barked suddenly from the roadside. Woof woof. It was a teddy, barking happily at the bushes, as if it had seen its owner. Damn, it's Wanda. Avril cursed in a low voice. Obviously, it was her dog. Tangda looked back and could vaguely see a white woman in a long skirt pulling the dog leash through the leaves. Wanda, let's go, we're going to go out for a walk. Be good, baby, stop barking. Is that your mother? You guessed right. Tangda and Avril looked at each other, maintaining this awkward posture and not daring to move, for fear of accidentally making a sound. Let's go, baby, Avril hasn't come back yet, don't yell like that. Fortunately, Avril's mother took Wanda away soon. Tangda quickly put Avril down, and was about to leave when she grabbed him. Is it over? Tangda turned to look at her and found that her eyes were shining in the moonlight. I don't care, Tangda. Avril looked like she dared to love and hate. Tangda was used to seeing those bitchy women, but this was the first time he saw such a frank and direct girl. So he put his head close to her lips again, and the two listened to each other's breathing under the moonlight, and the shadows on the ground gradually twisted together. But there was more than Avril's mother passing by on this road. Their actions were interrupted by a child who went into the woods to pick up a frisbee. The two had no choice but to give up. Tangda touched Avril's hair and sent her home. Call me if you miss me. I'll call you tonight. Avril nodded immediately. Okay, no problem, but if I don't answer, I must be busy with company matters. I'll send you a message to let you know. Tangda would not make any absolute promises. He was not a pure boy. After returning home and washing up, he received a call from Avril. She chatted with Tangda on the phone, but she didn't keep pestering him. Avril only talked for half an hour and was about to hang up. When Tangda asked her what she was going to do, she replied, I have to practice the guitar, Tangda. I have to practice the guitar for an hour every night, write songs, and help Wanda prepare breakfast tomorrow. Wow, then you are really busy. Tangda teased, even busier than me. Of course, if the new album is released, I will become even busier. What do you think? Tangda knew that the girl was still a little nervous, so he comforted her. Don't worry, Avril, you have done your best, and that's enough. Those fans will feel it. It sounds like you are more confident than me. Avril laughed. Tangda smiled and said, of course, Avril, the song I chose is definitely right. He was right. Just 3 days later, The days of long phone calls were gone forever. Because the song Complicated became popular. That's how it is, because that's life. Calm down, do you want to scream? Think about the past, what have you done? Tang walked on the street, and he could hear young people singing this song and walking on skateboards all over the street, and there must be a music store playing this song every half a street. These things seemed to happen suddenly in one morning, without any signs or foreshadowing, and no one could have imagined that this song would become popular at such a rapid speed. Even Tang himself did not expect it. He walked into a music store casually, intending to buy a vinyl album and a CD album for his collection, but found a group of people gathered around the TV and watched something unknown. Tang walked closer and found that it turned out that everyone was watching the MV of Complicated and discussing Avril's song there. Out of curiosity, he found a chair and sat in front of the bar, watching the curly-haired Indian owner wave his hand for everyone to be quiet, and then played the MV from the beginning. Chapter 60, in the video store. Wow! The sound of skateboards came from the TV, and the camera moved up from the wheels, showing the white calves, thighs, and arms. Until the picture slowly zoomed out, several boys could be seen standing by and fiddling with their instruments. The camera followed Avril closely, recording the scenes of her graffiti along the wall. The entire shot was simple and smooth, and more importantly, the bright colors in the picture caught everyone's attention in an instant. So beautiful! Miran exclaimed, and Dival immediately followed up, "Are you talking about graffiti or girls?" "Both." Miran replied with a smile. The MV continued to play, and after Avril finished graffiti, she came to several boys and said a few words, and they stepped on skateboards and rushed to the mall. As the music sounded, a series of dazzling skateboarding skills also impacted everyone's vision with fast editing techniques. In the mall, Avril and her group first played with dolls in front of McDonald's and were driven away by Cindy, and then put on layers of clothes in the clothing store. In particular, several boys were dressed in women's clothes and posed in various funny poses, which made the audience outside the TV laugh. Avril did the same, but as the lyrics turned to the climax, she stretched out her hands and tore off her clothes one by one. It was like she was reborn from a cocoon. With her energetic expression and high-spirited lyrics, everyone felt the power of rebellion. However, the clerk played by Kaden obviously disagreed. She picked up the broom in the store and chased Avril and her group. Later, Cindy joined, and then the security guards joined. A group of people chased each other in the mall. It was very lively. In the middle, the overall performance of the band was interspersed, and the whole picture looked sunny, bright and cheerful. It was very consistent with the tone of the whole song. Everyone was immersed in the song, shaking their heads, stomping their feet, and twisting their buttocks. Tang couldn't help knocking on the table, using the sound of dang-dang as accompaniment. When the MV ended, everyone still felt that they were not satisfied. Dival also played the song on the TV facing the glass. "She's so pretty. Her name is Avril. I want to pursue her." A bold black guy was chatting with his companions, but as soon as he finished speaking, he was glared at by the short, bespectacled guy next to him. "Don't even think about it, Madden. Don't think you can do whatever you want just because you have a handsome face. I won't let you succeed. Avril is mine." Tang looked left and right, but didn't realize what was so handsome about this black guy. Hearing this, the black guy immediately used his language talent and quickly counterattacked his bespectacled companion. "Come on, man. Look in the mirror. Do you want to get close to her with these thick lenses?" "Oh, Avril, my glasses fell at your feet. Can you help me pick them up and put them on?" "Of course," he answered in a shrill voice, approached the bespectacled companion, and the next second his mouth suddenly pouted. "And then you kissed Avril on the face? Forget it, man. I haven't told you that you actually have bad breath. Fskskyow. Madden." The bespectacled guy stretched out his middle finger, then put his hand in front of his face and exhaled and inhaled. Damn it. The bespectacled guy was obviously smoked a lot, and his glasses were also covered with a white mist. Madden laughed without hiding, and the others also laughed. "Even if Avril is not mine, she is not yours." The bespectacled man could only curse viciously. "You can't even touch her fingernails. Then you don't need to worry about it. Man, what if she comes to perform someday?" Listening to everyone's fantasies about Avril, Tang couldn't help but think of what happened in the woods that night. Tisk, if these people knew about the relationship between Avril and me, it would be like a baseball batting, and the only thing left is to run the bases and score. They would probably rush over to kill me. In addition to Avril, there were 2 other girls who were also discussed. What's the name of the McDonald lady? I don't know, but she looks really pretty and has a good figure. She might be a model. Just look at the list on the back of the album. Let me see. The McDonald lady is Cindy, and the clothing store lady is Kaden. I like Kaden, her figure is so hot. No, I think Cindy is better, she looks more gentle. Cindy, Kaden, they are really good. Do you have any photos? I kind of want to buy some. This sentence really woke Tang up. Since the customer service ladies don't have any works to shoot now, why not follow the model's process and release photos first to make everyone familiar with them? And with the fermentation of Avril's new song, it is obvious that more and more people will discuss Kaden and Cindy, so it is better to prepare in advance. Maybe someone will come to seek cooperation in the future. And in this case, the company's recruitment will also be arranged in a process. He needs some professional agents and professional sales. He and Jimmy can't go out every day to negotiate orders with customers. After thinking about these things, Tang first went to the record area and took 2 copies of Avril's new single album. When he walked to the counter to pay, he heard several people discussing the MV of this song. Devil, I really have evidence that the director of this MV is the director of Nelly's song. Mirren picked up the album in his hand and turned it to the back, where there was a list of production actors. Look, Avril's album director and photographer are the same person, done. And the photographer of Nelly's new song MV is also done. Devil nodded and said nonchalantly, so what? Mirren, the director of Nelly's song was Jose, maybe Don performed well and took the lead? And I think this song is not as good as Nelly's, the color does not look advanced enough. Bullshit, Avril's song is not a lyrical song like Nelly's. Such lively music should be brighter. Look at those young people outside, they can't take their eyes away. Mirren argued, pointing to the young children who began to gather outside the house. Well, maybe you were right, but I still like this MV more. The 2 people were arguing, and the others also had their own preferences. Tang, who was watching from the sidelines, smiled and said nothing. What was this? A party of textual research? It was a pity that they didn't know that Tang was fully responsible for the MVs of these 2 songs. He was like hitting his left hand against his right hand. But Mirren was right, the style of the song and the tone of the film complement each other. Avril's songs are not suitable for the so-called rich movie colors, and the crowd she and Nelly face are also very different. All of Tang's considerations are based on popularity. With popularity, everything can be achieved. As for winning awards, that's just a byproduct. After leaving the video store, Tang drove to the company. He planned to plan the company's future development and recent plans with Jimmy. PK on Sanjiang, thank you everyone. It will be on the shelves next Wednesday, and I will start accumulating manuscripts. Chapter 61 Double Weekly Champion. In just a few days, Avril's new song has already been on the top of the Billboard charts, and quickly became the #1 in the next week. Compared to her previous life, her song only got the 2nd place, which was undoubtedly due to Tang's contribution. At the same time, the latest music reviews also appeared in front of everyone with the publication of Nylon magazine. It was still the usual Blackjack and Tony, but this time there was another music critic named Mysterious Man. Nylon magazine kept the identity of this person a secret, saying only that he was a senior in the music industry, not only with a prominent position, but also with many famous songs. If you want to know more, you can tear off the last page of the magazine, write your thoughts on the latest new song and send it to the company. As long as a certain number of comments are reached, the magazine will reveal his identity in the subsequent magazines. And this mysterious man's comments are indeed quite good. His analysis of the songs at the top of the Billboard, whether in terms of style, arrangement, lyrics, etc., is very professional, which is very suitable for the appetite of those heavy music fans. After talking about the top 10 songs, he began to comment on Avril's new song. He said, "If I could go back to 6 months ago, I would definitely choose to let my current company sign Avril. She is full of energy and dynamic punk. This is what young people like most today. And her song is enough to impress any young people who pass by the music store and sway to her rhythm. I can imagine that the radio on campus plays this song all day long. Although her song is still very immature, whether in terms of instrument arrangement or composition, it is not as good as various veteran singers, but it doesn't matter. The most important thing about music is that it makes people feel emotions, and I feel happy from it. Especially the MV, skateboarding, graffiti, and making a scene in the mall. Behind the seemingly laughing and joking, it is the self-summary of the young generation. They are different, they are willing to be rebellious children. Speak for yourself. This is great. I like this idea, and I even want to ask this director to shoot an MV for me. So I have no objection to the #1 position of this song on the Billboard. Of course, how long it can last depends on the subsequent efforts. He was right. Avril's music agency has been working hard, and all kinds of publicity are everywhere. In order to make Avril's song popular for a longer time, as they wished, the song finally achieved 2 weeks of dominating the charts, and then was replaced by a new song. But even so, Avril still became famous and became even busier. Now not only did she not have time to chat with Tang on the phone, but she also did not have time to practice the piano. Correspondingly, Raymond and Batman finally returned to New York after making no more money. They also invited Tang to meet at Feish Music Company. However, Tang refused the meeting on the pretext of being busy. Just kidding, he kept his word. Don't even think about letting him step into that black community again in this life. So he directly invited Raymond and Batman to meet at a bar in the outer block the next day. At the company, Tangda and Jimmy had already started recruiting. They asked the post-production company to remake a simple advertisement in the form of the previous advertisement, and the copy was changed to recruit sales and agents. Now it has been put on the advertising screens under major office buildings in New York. I guess someone will submit a resume in some time, and then Tangda will review and interview them. The most important thing for him at this time was to take photos for Kaden and Cindy in the rented villa. Yes, that's right. Lift the straps a little bit, great. Just like that. Tangda was standing by the swimming pool, guiding Cindy, who was wearing a pink bikini, to show her body curves. She pulled the straps a little bit, letting the sunlight behind her shine through the bikini, and the shadow on her chest immediately appeared on the bikini, which was extremely tempting. Tangda pressed the shutter, and the photo was taken with a click. Go on, Cindy, let's change poses. Unlike his irritable attitude towards other people, Tangda seemed much gentler today, because Cindy's cooperation was really good. She was born to be a model, and her understanding ability and modeling ability were relatively good. In comparison, Kaden was a little inferior, not because she didn't cooperate, but because her understanding ability was not as good as Cindy's. But she had a good foundation. Tangda could see that she was just too young, and after 2 more years of experience, she would probably be able to reproduce the style of the Queen of the Dark World. Come on, both of you, face each other and stick together. Yes, untie the straps at the back. Yes, let them push up against each other. No, Kaden, lift your hair, you need to be more sexy. Why is this action a bit like a monkey? Ha ha ha. The 2 girls laughed together, and Kaden raised her hands again, but still did not meet Tangda's requirements. So Cindy also helped her wave her hands, and as a result, the 2 of them forgot that they did not have straps on their chests for a moment, and their chests suddenly relaxed as the amplitude of the movement increased. The infinitely bright and tender white and upright color immediately filled Tangda's eyes. Wow, this is great. Tangda subconsciously raised his camera to take a picture of the scene. In the photo, Cindy's face was flushed, her hands were raised high, holding Kaden's hair. And Kaden looked at the camera openly, and his body was slightly forward. Classic. Tangda sighed, and then watched the 2 girls put on their bikinis. Although this photo is very classic in terms of lighting, angle and expression, it can only be put aside as his own collection. That's great, Tangda smiled. This is why he chose photography. Who doesn't love a young and beautiful body? Seeing Tangda looking at the camera with admiration, Kaden on the side teased Cindy, look, the boss is fascinated by our photos. Cindy tied the straps and looked down at Kaden's charming line. It's all your fault, Kaden, now it's good, the boss took the photo, what should we do? What should we do? Doesn't this prove that even the boss can't resist our charm? Kaden lifted the hair on his forehead and smiled slightly. You were so reserved just now, why did the boss become more confident after taking the photo? Because I proved my charm. Come on, don't think I don't know, you talk about the boss every day, do you like him? Cindy came over and asked in a low voice. Of course, don't you like the boss? He is handsome, rich, and has personality. Where can you find such a man? Kaden did not hide his thoughts on Tangda. But you also know that dating is not allowed in the company. Who said you have to date? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 62, It's a Beautiful Thought. The next day, Tang drove to the company. He found that Mike's frequency of contacting him had dropped sharply recently. He used to urge him to shoot the MV several times a week, but he had not contacted him once in the past 2 weeks. Tang realized that Mike's work focus was shifting, or that he was no longer as attentive to him as before. Even though Avril's song was still popular and he had proved his strength, Mike didn't seem to think so. He seemed to think that it was just a good song and had nothing to do with the MV. So before and after the release of the song, he successively recruited several directors and photographers to join his company. Although Tang was not in CAA, Jimmy was well informed and spread the news to his ears. But it didn't matter. Anyway, it was only a 1-year contract. Tang planned to cancel the contract with Mike and change an agent after the contract ended. Ding-ling-ling. Just as he drove out of the community, the phone suddenly rang. Hello. Tang looked ahead and answered the phone with one hand. Is that Tang? I'm Brady's secretary, Shelley. 2 minutes later, Tang hung up the phone and turned around to drive to the CAA building. The secretary, Shelley, serves Brady, who is the executive vice president of CAA. He just doesn't know why he wants to meet him today. Maybe Avril's song is so popular that he is a little surprised. Tang didn't think too much. After arriving at the building, he soon saw the secretary in the lobby. Her long hair was tied behind her head. She was wearing a black tight suit, flesh-colored stockings and red high heels. She walked with a swaying style and a touch of fragrance. Hello. Her attitude was quite arrogant, and her eyes were looking down on her. As soon as Tang saw her demeanor, he immediately realized that she must be the personal secretary of Brady, the senior executive. Without saying anything more, the two walked into a special elevator and went directly to the 28th floor. This floor is the executive level of CAA, and other elevators cannot reach it. Secretary Shelley took Tang to the door of the office, knocked first, and waited for a few seconds before slowly pushing it open. In an instant, a man holding a golf club and standing in front of the floor-to-ceiling glass facing the sun appeared in front of Tang. Tang sneered in his heart. Even the office of Henry, the CEO of Heinz Group, is not so grand. Brady, the executive vice president of CAA, seemed to be very particular about face and pomp. When Tang entered the office, Brady suddenly said, "Come, take a look at those buildings and people. Do you feel insignificant?" Tang walked to his side, looked at the scenery below the 28th floor, and then turned his head to look elsewhere. "I think it can be higher." Brady followed his line of sight and found that it was the iconic building in New York, the Empire State Building. Since the attack on the World Trade Center in New York, the Empire State Building has regained its former glory and stood at the highest point. Brady raised his eyebrows. But if you want to see higher scenery, you have to endure many things that ordinary people cannot understand. Tang shrugged. I have endured too many things that cannot be understood. Brady thought he was talking about his own background and patted him on the shoulder. Yes, Tang, I was shocked when I saw your resume. You graduated from a third-rate university and worked in underground magazine photography. You were mediocre, but in just half a year, you grew rapidly with a small album cover, and now you have even shot 2 MVs for hit singles. Brady handed the club to the secretary and sat back on the sofa. If it were me, I might not be able to do better than you. Thank you for the compliment. Tang felt that this guy really liked to flatter himself. But Brady's subsequent words solved his doubts. I studied abroad in Tokyo. The charming scenery there really made me linger. There are also these books and paintings, which are elegant and artistic. I have collected a lot of them. Unfortunately, I haven't been to China yet. I don't know what the scenery there is like. Believe me, it will only be better than Tokyo. Tang explained, although I haven't been there either, my father has been telling me about it since I was a child. It's really exciting. Maybe I can go there when I have a break. What about you? How long do you plan to rest? The company still has many singers' MVs waiting to be filmed. Are you interested? Brady took the paper handed over by Shelley and held it in front of Tang. Tang knew that it was another priority choice, so he picked up the paper. However, unlike the previous list of personnel, there was only one big name on it. Eminem. It turned out to be him. Tangda was a little surprised. How about it? Do you want to take charge of his new album MV? I heard that it will start shooting soon, but they haven't confirmed the candidate yet. I can recommend it to you. Brady saw Tangda's surprise and put on a confident look on his face. But Tangda frowned slightly. It was obvious that Brady would not so easily hand over the new song of Eminem, who is well known in the European and American music scene, to him. Something must be wrong. So Tangda immediately became alert, but pretended to be happy on the surface and said, I am his fan. I didn't expect that one day I could direct his new song. Thank you, Mr. President. It's more than just thanks. Brady shook his head slightly. Then what should I do? Or are there any conditions for this director position? Shelley took over and said, of course, Mr. Brady arranged this director position for you at the company meeting against all odds. Oh, Shelley, don't say that. Brady waved his hand to interrupt her, and looked at Tangda with a smile. It's not that troublesome, Tangda, I just hope you can sign this agreement. Secretary Shelley handed over another document, but this one was obviously much thicker. Tangda glanced at it lightly, and his eyebrows immediately frowned, because the conditions above were more demanding for him. This agreement requires Tangda to abide by the company's arrangements. In addition to the rest time, he must accept the company's assigned filming tasks every month. This is completely opposite to the current contract where Tangda is the leader and can freely choose the package service. In contrast, Brady's singer resources are given priority to Tangda, and his salary has increased several times compared to before. In addition, Mike is still the agent, but the contract period is changed to 5 years. In Tangda's opinion, this agreement is no different from a contract of sale. But Brady obviously doesn't think so. He opened his hands and made a speech gesture and said, Tangda, no one can guarantee that he will always be successful. I can't, and you can't. But I can guarantee that you can always shoot the best MV for the best singer. Think about the Grammy, think about the MTV Awards. That's what you should pursue, and I can help you. It sounds good, but even Raymond, an illiterate person, can probably hear the calculation in his words. Tangda only then fully understood Brady's plan. The executive vice president was ready to tie himself to his boat. But how could he accept such an agreement? Just kidding, even without Brady's promise, he can still get everything he wants, just a little slower. Not to mention that he is the boss of Supreme Creativity and Angel Declaration. How can he work hard for CAA every day? But Tangda didn't plan to tear his face off immediately. After all, he didn't plan to leave CAA. If he left CAA alone, he would need to work 10 times harder than now in terms of resources and connections. Platform is far more important than personal ability. Of course, for Tangda, platform means saving trouble. So Tangda thought for a while and said, to be honest, I am very tempted, but I have some choice difficulties. I need to go home and think about it carefully. Brady nodded generously, of course, but as soon as possible. Tangda, I am very busy, and there are many people who want this agreement very much, but I only give it to you. His tone was full of appreciation, but Tangda knew that behind this appreciation was a calculation of penny by pound. I will, then I. Tangda picked up the document and pretended to take it away. Take it away, no problem. Thank you. After thanking, Tangda, who maintained a fake smile, followed Shelley back into the elevator, and then left the CAA building under Shelley's gaze. He drove all the way back to his company's office and sat in the boss's chair. Tangda then tore up the agreement and threw it into the trash can. Shit, you're just daydreaming. After cursing, he called Jimmy in and asked directly, which executive vice president does your agent work for? Chapter 63 Meeting an Acquaintance. My agent? Carl. Jimmy leaned on the table and said, I heard that he is under the executive vice president Edinson Thorne. Edinson? Yeah, I see. CAA's current president has 2 executive presidents, and the executive presidents have several executive vice presidents. Edinson and Brady are 2 opponents under the same executive president. Originally, CAA's management system was intended to better expand its business, but with a fixed market share of the film market, it has gradually evolved into a situation where the top management attacked and shirked responsibility. It is also normal to grab people and projects. Of course, these exist in the internal top management, and the external customers and stars don't have much perception of this. Perhaps only the employees can feel this tense atmosphere. At least the current competition is still in a benign stage, but in Tangda's view, Brady's agreement is obviously not just for himself. He must be casting a wide net and using the same set of words to deceive the new directors in the company. After all, how can the capitalists' faces be trusted? So he planned to change his faction. Jimmy, come here and help me with something. Okay, you go ahead. Jimmy came over and was stunned after hearing what Tang said in his ear. Are you sure he can understand this? Of course he can understand, they are not stupid. Tang waved his hand. Just tell Carl these few words, I guess he will come to me soon. Okay. Jimmy agreed immediately. He no longer takes work from CAA, because working for anyone is not as good as working for his own company. And with his level, he can't make a name for himself in CAA. But his agent Carl has never complained about him, not only because Carl and Jimmy have a good personal relationship and like-minded, but also because he knows that Jimmy and Tang have a good relationship, and he still has some thoughts in his heart to let Tang change his job. Jimmy walked out of the office, took out his mobile phone and called Carl. Hello. Carl, are you busy? No, I'm free now and I'm drinking tea. Carl is a British guy, and drinking tea is the most relaxing moment of the day for him. How did you end up like this, man? Did you recruit a few new directors? Look at Mike. Jimmy smiled and leaned against the stair railing. Hearing this, Carl squeezed out a hoarse and sarcastic laugh from his throat. Haha, Mike is really a good guy, ambitious, man. I am different. I prefer to lie in my own yard and bask in the sun. Tisk tisk, you are so leisurely. If Mike heard this, he would definitely ridicule you. Come on, Mike is just not satisfied. If there's someone like Tang among the people I am responsible for, do I need to find others? I can make a lot of money by serving this one. Carl complained, and Jimmy heard the sound of sipping tea on the other end of the phone. CAA has a lot of agents, and there are also many marginal agents like Carl. Mike is different. He was originally a core agent, and only after Tang achieved success did he become a core agent under Brady. Maybe, but I think Tang is a little dissatisfied with Mike recently, saying that he is so busy that he doesn't even return the phone. Ahem, wait a minute, Jimmy, really? Carl choked a few times, his tone anxious. Of course, why would I lie to you? But I just complained a few words to him when I was drinking with him. I don't know the details, but it is true that Tang has not received any new work since Avril. How is this possible? Carl couldn't believe that Mike dared to let Tang sit on the bench. Such a hot director can't be left unsought. Really, but I don't know the details, forget it. Jimmy quickly skipped this topic and continued to talk about other things with Carl. Tang also came to the bar and met Raymond and the others. Hey, brother. Long time no see. Raymond's outfit has completely changed now. He wears sunglasses, a black sequined suit, and a white t-shirt. Sitting on the sofa, his belly is slightly curved. Obviously, the pampering during this period has changed his mental and physical state. After seeing Tang, he first stood up and hugged him, then patted the sofa next to him. Sit here. Hey, man. Good evening, Tang. Long time no see. The other people took the initiative to greet Tang, and their attitude was quite close, which was very different from the attitude when they first met. After Tang sat down, he found that Amai and Xiaobei had changed their styles. Xiaobei even tied a few gold rings on his dreadlocks, which looked like he wanted to pull them off. He turned around and saw Davis again, but there was an acquaintance next to him. Arkady. Tang raised his eyebrows. Did he say that this girl was filmed by a scout? That's right, that agent is a gangster. He wants Arkady to act in an adult movie. Raymond shrugged. Fortunately, Davis arrived in time and beat him up. While talking, Davis and Arkady hugged each other sweetly, and had no time to care about others. Wow, a hero saves a beautiful girl, great. Tang picked up his glass and clinked it with Raymond. The next moment, he heard a rustling sound in the bathroom, and then Batman came out with a cigar in his mouth. Batman, how have you been these past few months? Batman exhaled smoke and smiled. Long time no see, you can tell how I've been doing by looking at me, I've lost weight. Raymond and his friends have to run around in major bars and live shows. Although they do make a lot of money, they are also more tired. And they have encountered a lot of things on this trip. From the fact that Barley's left hand is missing a finger, it can be seen that the journey has not been peaceful. But Tang will not poke people's sore spots. Anyway, they are back in New York now, which is their familiar territory. With the money earned from Raymond's songs, it is not a problem to squander a few years. As for why it is not a lifetime? Come on, which black rapper can live a peaceful life, especially Raymond, who grew up in the streets and gangs? It is not surprising that he may be shot one day. Perhaps they themselves also have such an idea of living for the moment, so Tang learned in the subsequent chat that Raymond bought a big villa, 3 different models of sports cars, and a yacht. This is only part of what he bought, and there are more shoes, clothes, gold chains, which are simply too numerous to count. Hearing from Barley that Raymond's family even has an 80 square meter room used to display shoes, Tang couldn't help but sigh at this guy's talent for spending money. Is this also considered a racial buff? In addition to being surprised, he also talked to Batman about Faith. Batman only found out later that Faith had done such an outrageous thing, but since Tang was not hurt, he could only comfort Tang on behalf of Faith. Tang and Raymond drank until the evening, and when they took out the leaves to take a few puffs, they said goodbye to Raymond and left the bar. Tomorrow is the advertising campaign for Shiguang brand cigarettes. In his opinion, this project must be won because it will become the most advantageous weapon to prove that supreme creativity is not a flash in the pan. Although the advertising fee of Shiguang is not high in the tobacco industry, it is definitely not low for Tang and his team. It is $250,000 a year, and each contract is for 3 years, a total of $750,000. There are not many projects with annual framework agreements, and each one is worth grabbing. In addition to the contracts of Gia's Baked Beans and Heinz, Supreme Creativity will have a stable income of $500,000 every year in the next 3 years after deducting taxes. This is a huge cash flow, and Tang can use it to expand the company or use it for personal enjoyment. Anyway, he takes the majority of the dividends every year. And this is just the beginning. As long as the name of Supreme Creativity is known, I believe those big companies will never refuse a company that can increase sales to join their advertising campaign. So Tang made some preparations for this. Chapter 64, Extra Jealous. The advertising campaign for Shiguang cigarettes was held in their headquarters building, but compared to Heinz and Gas, Tang felt that the whole building looked much older when he arrived this time. The corridors were full of introductions about the founder and corporate culture, and the employees were wearing dark suits and running quickly between the offices. It looks quite serious. Jimmy couldn't accept such an atmosphere, and looked depressed. After all, it's the tobacco company, you know, it's a long time ago. Shiguang cigarettes originated in 1956, and the company has always been controlled by the Sommer family. Due to fixed products and fixed personnel, the company's management is inevitably a bit rigid, and the atmosphere is naturally not relaxed. The current president of the company is Mark Sommer, the son of Chairman Abby Sommer. People often call them Big Sommer and Little Sommer outside. Tang, Jimmy and Cindy walked into the meeting room together. This time, all the advertising companies sat together. But this time, when other companies saw Tang and others sitting on the Supreme Creativity sign, their expressions became quite solemn. Because everyone in the industry knows that this is a company that boasts of its top creativity. Although it sounds exaggerated, at least they won the first battle beautifully. Even Ogilvy Advertising, the industry leader in New York, has never competed with this new company. Of course, even Ogilvy Advertising has industries that it is not good at. In fact, in the tobacco industry, IPG and DDB, DRBA, are the largest advertising agencies and competitors in New York. IPG is not mentioned for the time being. DRBA is affiliated with Omnicom, one of the world's top advertising media groups, with strong funds and abundant talents. It's just that they unexpectedly sent a 2-person team to compete with other advertising companies this time, which makes people a little confused. Tang looked at the teams of various companies and had an understanding of the fierceness of the competition for the time card advertising. Generally speaking, the more important the client, the more people the advertising agency will send. Except for small companies that are not fully staffed, large companies start with 3 people, and 5 or 6 people at most. After all, if you come with a big fanfare, it would be bad if you leave in disgrace. However, Supreme Creative has always had a stable trio, with a boss, the manager and a pretty girl who helps out. Perhaps it was because Kaden had told Cindy in advance that Cindy, like her, also pinched Tang's shoulders, which made Jimmy very envious. Damn it, I must bring Lillian in next time. Jimmy has been very close to the pink-haired girl recently. At the same time, Gilmer, the leader of IPG across the table, frowned slightly. He didn't expect Supreme Creative to intervene in the advertising campaign of a cigarette brand. Did they think they could copy the sales miracle of Gia's? Just kidding, he sneered at this. Tobacco brands cannot attract customers with cheap ideas. Any advertising slogans that may involve health cannot appear, not even hints. So when everyone does this kind of advertising, they look for highlights from the brand to expand the creativity. But Gilmer doesn't think Supreme Creative can understand this kind of thing that involves deeper advertising design. After all, this company is just a small company that has just been established for a few months and does not have such a deep industry background as himself. He would not be like the stupid Ross, who gave away the cake in his hand to others. So compared to Supreme Creativity, he paid more attention to Hengmei advertising, because Hengmei had more experience and was responsible for more industries, and must be a strong competitor. Just as he was thinking, the door of the conference room opened again, and the serious middle-aged secretary walked in with 3 people. Maroney. Jimmy was immediately happy when he saw this guy. Yet, I didn't expect to meet them here. Tangda also looked at Maroney with a smile. He still looked like a show-off, with a white suit and a red tie, like a duck in a nightclub. And Maroney and the others also felt the eyes of the 2 people turning their heads. Who is that? Why are you looking at us? Phoebe stood behind Maroney and looked at the sign in front of Tangda with Torian. Supreme Creativity? Is that them? Tangda, Jimmy. Only Maroney had an expression of seeing a ghost. He never thought that the representative of Supreme Creativity was Tangda. Bringing the 2 young men to Tangda, Maroney said with a fake smile, "Long time no see, Tangda, how have you been recently?" Jimmy extended his hand first. "Wow, thanks to you, I'm doing great." "Haha, really? It seems that your new boss trusts you very much?" Maroney said, but Cindy retorted, "No, you are wrong." She extended her hand to Maroney and reintroduced Jimmy and Tangda. "This is the manager of our Supreme Creativity, and this is the boss of our Supreme Creativity." Boss. Maroney couldn't help but twitch the corners of his mouth, and his original fake smile disappeared. "I didn't expect that you 2 would start a company." Jimmy laughed. "That's why I said I want to thank you, Maroney. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't know that being a boss can be so profitable." Tangda said modestly, "Don't say that, Jimmy, we have just started, and we are still far behind line advertising." "Yet, that's right, Maroney, we will need you to take care of us in the future, otherwise how about giving this advertising campaign to us?" These words made the 2 young men behind Maroney angry, but none of them cursed as fiercely as Maroney in his heart. Son of a bitch. A villain succeeding. In Maroney's opinion, these 2 people are traitors, and they don't deserve to have the current company and status, and be on an equal footing with him. But in this occasion, in front of all his colleagues, he couldn't get angry. Fortunately, the people he brought with him played a role. "So you are Tangda, you know, what people need is gratitude. If it weren't for Maroney, you would still be working as rubbish lighting technicians for adult movies in the studio." Phoebe mocked, and Tangda raised his eyebrows. It seems that Maroney often talked about himself to these people. He wasn't angry, because it wasn't worth it, but Jimmy couldn't bear to hear this, and waved his fist directly. "Damn brat, who are you calling trash?" "Of course I'm talking to whoever is angry. It seems that some people don't know how to live or die. I really should teach you a lesson on behalf of your father." "What do you mean? You want to fight? Really?" "Yes, you're scared. How is that possible? Do you think you can scare me? Come on if you have the guts." "Cindy, don't stop me, I'm going to teach this kid a lesson." Cindy rolled her eyes beautifully, stood behind Tangda, and thought to herself that the boss didn't say anything, so I won't stop him. The people next to them also stood up and left directly, making room for Jimmy and Phoebe. This situation is not uncommon. In fact, real business wars are often plain and simple. Since the language can't make sense, just use fists to communicate. Think about the news that Musk challenged Zuckerberg to an octagonal cage fight more than 20 years later, and you will know that this matter is considered a tradition in Europe and the United States. Tangda did the same. He stood behind Jimmy and compared the gap between the 2. Cindy came up to him and asked, "Boss, is the manager okay?" Tangda smiled and whispered, "Do you know what Jimmy's nickname is at school?" "What's it?" "Violent Monkey. There is a pre-order event now, just below this chapter. If you like this book, you can take a look. It will be cheaper than the normal subscription. It will be on the shelves next week. I hope everyone will support it." Chapter 65 Baking Creativity. Violent Monkey. Cindy was still muttering this nickname, while Jimmy and Phoebe had already rolled up their sleeves and got ready for a boxing match. "Look at your stiff steps, kid, and you still dare to yell at me." Jimmy knew from Phoebe's steps that this guy had not practiced much, and probably only played basketball. If he ran into a football field with this body, he would be like a balloon pierced by a needle and float all over the field. But Phoebe was quite confident, and even stretched out her foot provocatively to make a Thai boxing kick. How could Jimmy let this flaw go? He went up and punched him. Phoebe was beaten back by his fast punches, and stumbled to the ground, while Jimmy jumped on him, shouting and punching him. Hey. Cindy finally understood why Jimmy was called the violent monkey. Look at Phoebe, who was begging for mercy. She was so tough just now, but now she is so humble. Seeing that look, everyone grinned silently. Only Maroney and Torian felt extremely ashamed. Then the next moment, Torian rushed over and swung his fist directly at Tang's cheek. "Boss." Cindy noticed it at the first time and wanted to push Tang away, but it was too late. Others also saw this scene. With the mentality of sitting on the mountain and watching the tiger fight, no one reminded Tang. Maroney became even more excited and wanted to see Tang fall to the ground and cry immediately. But the next second Tang turned his head slightly and swung his right fist at a faster speed. Before Torian's fist reached his face, he hit him in the face with the advantage of his long arm. Bang! Torian fell to the ground instantly and fainted directly. His glasses were knocked 3 meters away. "That's it." Tang laughed and looked at Maroney. "This has nothing to do with me. Tang, this is the territory of the Summer family, you can't hit people at will." Maloney took 2 steps back in fear. Tang ignored him and stepped forward. "Anyway, hitting 1 or 2 is the same, so it's better to deal with them all and let them pack up and leave." Secretary. Seeing this, Maloney immediately shouted for help, and soon the door of the conference room was pushed open. The secretary saved Maloney and did not let Tang get what he wanted. However, after asking the security guards to drag away the 2 embarrassing things, Maloney had no choice but to withdraw from this advertising campaign. Gilmer, who had been watching, called the secretary of his team over and whispered a few words to her. The secretary nodded and walked out of the conference room directly. With the end of the warm-up boxing match, the advertising campaign finally entered the formal process. Hangmei Advertising took the lead in entering the president's office to start presenting its creativity. During this process, the conference room was very dull. After waiting for 20 minutes, the secretary came to call away the IPG people. Cindy rubbed Tang's arm and waited until the 4 companies finished their presentations before finally hearing the secretary's voice. "Supreme Creativity, it's your turn." Tang opened his eyes, straightened his suit, looked at Jimmy again, and then walked into the office with his secretary. As soon as they entered the door, they saw several people on the chairs chatting and discussing previous ideas. An old man with gray hair sat in the middle, silent, while the little Summer next to him, with his hair slicked down, was listening to the discussion of his subordinates. "Good afternoon, gentlemen." Tang confidently walked to the blackboard, picked up a pen, and greeted several senior executives. "Are you Tang from Supreme Creativity?" Little Summer touched his hair, leaned back on the chair, crossed his legs, and looked nonchalant. "Yes. So what is your idea?" Little Summer didn't seem to be very patient, but old Summer kept squinting his eyes, as if he was resting, or as if he was dozing off. "Before you tell me your idea, let me ask you a question." Tang did not give the initiative to Summer, but took it back in his own hand. Seeing the group of people looking at him with a question, he said, "Have you read the report in Reader's Digest recently? The one against tobacco?" "What is that?" Summer spread his hands, and the next second the executive next to him reminded him, "The article Tobacco is Eating You Up." "Yes, that's it, I brought it here." As soon as Tang finished speaking, Cindy handed the several copies of Reader's Digest that had been opened in her hand to the executives with a smile. Under the offensive of the beauty, the executives did not refuse and took it to read. In fact, everyone has more or less heard of and read this article, except Summer. Because this article has become the focus of recent discussions in the tobacco industry, and most families have subscriptions to Reader's Digest, so such an anti-tobacco article naturally resonates with many housewives. This directly led to the further decline of the cigarette market. Looking at the continuously falling sales curve, the executives have been having a headache for several days. So, What does it matter? Little Sommer glanced and shrugged, and then his father glared at him and he immediately sat up straight. Of course it matters. In fact, Reader's Digest helped you. Tang just shook his head and said, no, not only Reader's Digest, but also the investigation of the Federal Trade Commission helped you. He was talking about the report on smoking is harmful to health released by the United States in 1964. Why do you say that? Old Sommer suddenly spoke up to express his confusion. Tang put his hands on the table, because it makes you realize that any connection between health and tobacco will only make people think of cancer and death. Should we thank them? Old Sommer's voice was a little hoarse, sounding like a piece of metal rubbing. Of course. Mr. Sommer, because you can't use it, other tobacco companies can't use it either. Tang smiled. Let me ask a few more questions. How do you produce cigarettes? I don't know. Little Sommer spoke quickly, and the next moment Old Sommer said angrily, shame on you. Then he listed the steps of making cigarettes in his company like the back of his hand. We cultivate pest-free tobacco seeds, plant them in the sunshine of North Carolina, cultivate, harvest, process, and bake. Yes. That's it. Tang's expression became excited, and he stretched out his hand to interrupt Old Sommer. Baking, this is the selling point. But other companies' tobacco is also baked. A senior executive next to him frowned. No, no, no. Tang lowered his body, like a lion, and scanned everyone with a powerful gaze. This is different, because happy times are baked, also translated as blessings with a toast. This double entendre made everyone take a deep breath. At the same time, they realized what the core of Tang's real advertising creativity was. In short, Tang's advertising strategy is to change from describing the selling point to describing the feeling, comparing baking to happiness. It not only represents the feeling of smoking, but also implies that tobacco is blessed. Other advertising companies often promote around the strength and age of the brand, and hint at tobacco through as many pictures and lines as possible, but Tang completely abandons these. He shows the audience more of a state, an ideal sense of happiness. Just like Tang said, don't you know the harm of cigarettes? No, everyone knows it too well, but they are still happy to do it even though they know it so well. Why? Just because when they are in trouble, those who have no more channels to relieve themselves can rely on tobacco to get a short-term sense of happiness, even if it is a harmful sense of happiness. There are similar advertisements in China, such as Lacoon's Let the Heart Travel, which is a representative of this type of advertisement. After understanding this, the eyes of those senior executives who were originally somewhat contemptuous suddenly became solemn, because this line did both avoid and mention it, just brushing the edge of the ban. This line is worth savoring. If your own cigarettes are the first to adopt it, it is equivalent to implanting this line into the user's mind in advance. Later, companies that use the same idea will be considered to be following the trend and plagiarizing. This is the advertising industry. It is not difficult to come up with ideas. The difficult part is how to come up with ads that are lacking in the market and that are relevant to users. Jimmy also smiled and looked at the senior executives and Old Sommer himself. Gentlemen, I don't think I need to explain what I just said. Chapter 66 Silence. The atmosphere in the conference room fell into silence, and everyone was thinking about Tang's creativity. After a few seconds, a voice suddenly broke the silence. Wait a minute, you should explain it. It was still Little Sommer, who frowned and looked confused. Old Sommer looked back at him with a helpless look. So Tang explained, advertising is based on one thing, that is, happiness. But what is happiness? Happiness is the feeling of owning a new car and sitting in it. It is the freedom you can feel without constraints, and it is the billboards on the roadside that promise you that you can do whatever you want. There is no problem with you. It's that simple. This advertisement is like this: people's hearts need comfort. We don't need to express our brand concept and strength, we just need to be like friends. When a customer is anxious about something, we tell him that it's okay, just do it, and rest if you are tired. Happiness is actually a very simple thing, and that's enough. Little Sommer frowned, and wanted to ask again, but was afraid of being scolded by his father, so he could only pretend to understand and nodded, and studied it in his mind. So, Mr. Sommer, what do you think of this idea? Tang asked with a smile. He didn't have any samples to show everyone this time, but it didn't matter. He was selling this core concept. I think the executives present also understood the essence of this advertisement. Old Sommer didn't say anything, but lowered his eyes, thought for a while, and suddenly clapped his hands. Very wonderful idea. Wow. The executives also clapped their hands. No matter if they were unwilling or had an agreement with other companies in secret, everyone had to act according to the chairman's mood. After a few seconds, Old Summer put down his hand. I will think about this idea carefully. Supreme idea. I will remember it. Thank you. Tang took Jimmy and Cindy out of the office. Jimmy immediately let out a sigh of relief as soon as he left the office. Damn, this atmosphere is so depressing. It's a pity that they can stay in there for so long. They are paid, they have to sit still. Tang patted Jimmy on the shoulder and said, let's go. We will probably get an answer tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. Take this time to call those interviewees over. Okay, no problem. The whole day of the next day, Tang was interviewing those applicants. Among them were not only tool people from small companies, but also some managers from large companies. However, in Tang's opinion, these people's abilities were not strong. He didn't want to expand the company's staff too much, so he didn't plan to spend money on them. You know, a well-run company often only needs to place a few extremely capable people in key positions to control the overall situation, and most of the rest are just idling around and waiting to die. After getting investment, many entrepreneurs often recruit people first, recruiting large numbers of people and eliminating the talents they want. But there are only 3 outcomes of this approach. One is that the number of people drags down the company, making it bloated and inefficient. By the way, there's intrigue and it becomes a big drag. One is that the staff turnover is very fast, and everyone becomes a screw, becoming more and more tired and lazy in the cycle of taking up the job per effect layoff. As for the last one, it is to step on the cusp of the times and directly grow into a unicorn. The third one is obviously very rare, and the right time, place and people are indispensable. Most companies still have to take steady steps to slowly climb up, but for Tang, he is just too lazy to manage. He prefers to find a guy with subjective initiative and outstanding ability to help him deal with these things, such as Jimmy. But it seems that there is no such person at present. In the evening, Tang drove home. When he passed by a car wash, he suddenly remembered that he hadn't washed his car for a long time, so he took his car to the car wash. Then he stood outside the door, watching the sunset slowly fall in front of his eyes. The dim light gradually disappeared, making him feel that time passed so quickly. In the blink of an eye, he had a new career and a new life. Tang folded his arms and looked at the people passing by hurriedly on the street. The night in America was not peaceful. Robbery could not be said to happen from time to time, but it happened every day. Tang had already found a new community and planned to let his mother move out directly after the company took 2 more advertisements and made money. While thinking about things, he suddenly saw a man holding a glass walking across the street. The familiar guile hairstyle was Tom Brown, Tang's former neighbor, and the person Tang recruited when he first filmed the MV. Since that filming, Tom continued his part-time job and never met Tang again. Unexpectedly, he met here. When Tom stepped onto the steps with a long glass, Tang was about to wave and say hello, but suddenly he heard a rapid roar, and then a lightning-fast motorcycle passed by Tom, making him subconsciously loosen his hands when he quickly avoided it. Crack! Wow! The sound of glass shattering immediately resounded throughout the street. The motorcyclist stopped, took off his helmet to reveal his childish face, hugged the girl behind him and laughed loudly. Ha ha ha! Look how scared he is. Tom's face was a little angry, and he was about to rush over, but the next moment several motorcycles drove over at high speed and stopped beside the boy. After taking off his helmet, Tang found that they were all a group of half-grown children wearing the same black jackets. They should be local motorcycle gangs. Tom did not continue to move forward, because he knew that if he went up, he would only humiliate himself, so he stood still. Those boys had originally planned to teach him a profound lesson, but now seeing that he was scared, they immediately laughed loudly and insulted Tom with the most despicable words. But Tom didn't react at all. He just squatted down, took off his coat and spread it on the ground. Then he silently picked up the broken glass on the ground, as if he was picking up his broken life. Unfortunately, it was in vain. The next second, he was cut. But he didn't even frown. He continued to pick up the broken glass in silence, letting the blood stain the glass red. The motorcycle gangs also felt bored when they saw this. Bullying a person who didn't resist obviously couldn't calm their dopamine. So they rode away on their motorcycles in a show of force. Tang slowly stepped forward and squatted down to help him pick up a few pieces of glass. Thanks. Tangda. Tom turned around and found that it was an acquaintance. Yes, it's me. My car is at the car wash. Tangda didn't ask Tom about his recent situation, but changed the subject and said, have you seen your family? Tom's family left New York after Tom went to prison and helped pay off several loans. Tangda didn't know where they went. But Tom nodded. They just arrived in New York a few days ago, but they will leave again in 2 days. Is it convenient? I mean, transportation, life? Tangda asked. Fortunately, everything is fine except transportation. Only when talking about his family, the corners of this man's mouth would slightly curl up. Mrs. Brown was also very kind to me when she moved in with us. She often sent us apple pie and stood in the garden to greet me. Tangda smiled and handed over his car keys. This car was his previous second-hand car. Tangda originally planned to replace it after a while, but now it seems that it has a new use. What? Tom didn't take it. Tangda patted his shoulder. Take it, take Mrs. Brown for a good walk, and say that Tangda said hello to her. I can't. Tom was about to refuse when Tangda pushed him back and forced the key into his hand. Come on, man, I'm not doing this for you, I'm doing this for Mrs. Brown, don't be so stubborn. And it's not free, you have to fill up the gas when you come back. Tangda smiled and stepped back a few steps, waiting for Tom to hold the key tightly before turning around and waving goodbye. Then I'll go first, man. Tom looked at Tangda's back, didn't say anything, just held the key tighter. At 8 o'clock in the evening, when Tom drove back to the hotel, his mother was hanging the newly washed clothes outside the door. Mrs. Brown was a middle-aged woman with a thick figure, her hair was permed in the latest popular wavy curls, and her face was full of acne due to years of using cheap cosmetics. Her heart skipped a beat when she saw the brand new car Tom was driving. She quickly walked down the stairs and asked, where did this car come from, Tom? Tom walked quickly to his mother and said, Mom, it's Tangda. He borrowed my car. He knew you were in New York, so he specially lent me the car. He also asked me to say hello to you. Tangda, is that the boy next door to us? But I remember. He's successful, Mom. He's now a famous MV director and makes a lot of money. Mrs. Brown was relieved and said happily, that's great. It's not easy for Carmela to raise 3 children. Tangda is handsome, tall and sweet. I have always liked him. Since he lent you the car, you must take good care of it and be careful not to damage it. Understood, Mom. She took Tom's hand and walked towards the room while advising, also, you must thank him well and remember to treat him to dinner. Don't worry, Mom. Don't just talk, Tom. Don't be like your bastard dad. He only knows how to take advantage. Now he's locked up in the police station for extortion. He should suffer more. I will earn the parole money as soon as possible. Chapter 67 Broker Negotiation. When Carl stood in front of the restaurant, he felt a little uneasy. He was wearing a gray suit with a black tie, holding the briefcase that had been with him since he started working, and nervously loosened his cuffs. I wonder if Jimmy has done a good job. When he called this morning, Jimmy said that he and Tangda were going to have dinner in a restaurant. He quickly asked Jimmy to tell him the name of the restaurant and planned to pretend to meet by chance. Because after investigating these few days, he did find that Tangda had not taken any work for a while, and he heard that Mike had complained to others about Tangda's temper. It seemed that the two of them were indeed at odds. This was undoubtedly a good opportunity. Although CAA's practice was that agents must serve the full term of the contract before they can be replaced, this was not the case if it was an internal transfer of personnel. As long as he could convince Tangda, he could use this opportunity to find his immediate superior, Vice President Edinson, and then Edinson would report to the president and ask for Tangda's contract to be transferred to his name. By then, he would be able to snatch the most outstanding MV director under Mike. This made Carl excited for a long time at night. He couldn't sleep well these days, tossing and turning until his wife kicked him out of bed. He must seize this hard-won opportunity. Although he is a rather lazy guy, laziness also requires money and status, right? And there is no loss if he fails. Carl thought everything out and walked into the restaurant. This is an ordinary steakhouse, without overly luxurious decorations or fancy services, only the taste that has been the same for more than 10 years. Tangda likes this restaurant very much. Those luxuriously decorated restaurants often lose the most essential things of food and blindly pursue form. On the contrary, this kind of small restaurant has better taste because it does not have much money for publicity and marketing. He picked up a piece of beef and put it in his mouth. Suddenly, he heard a surprised voice from the side. "Hey, Jimmy, why are you here?" Jimmy understood and raised his head and pretended to be surprised. "Carl, why is it you?" "Oh, I passed by here and was attracted by the smell coming from the door. It happened to be noon, and it was time to fill my stomach." After saying that, Carl pulled out a chair and sat down. He turned his head and looked at Tangda. He was stunned at first, and then said in a shocked tone, "Oh, God, Tangda." "Hello." Tangda stretched out his hand. Carl hurriedly shook hands. "I didn't expect you to be here too. I was listening to Avril's song a few days ago. That MV was shot so well." Seeing this, Jimmy curled his lips and wondered if Carl's performance was real or fake. But whether it was true or not, this play would continue, because it was not only Carl's wish, but also Tangda's. "Thank you for your love." Tangda finished speaking and continued to eat. Carl winked at Jimmy, and Jimmy continued, "By the way, Tangda, why haven't you taken any work recently? Are you planning to retire?" Tangda shrugged. "I do want to, but Mike is taking care of his new director recently. The singers he gave me are all very bad. I mean their songs, so I don't want to waste my time and energy on them." "Yes, I think it's right." The MVs shot by Tangda have topped the Billboard twice in a row. Of course, such a title should match those big-name singers. Carl nodded. "To be honest, I have several big-name singers who want to release songs this year, but the directors of the MVs have not been settled. It would be great if you were my client, and I would definitely give them to you." Seeing Tangda frowning, Carl gritted his teeth and added, "Although I know it's a bit unpleasant to say, Tangda, Mike may not value you very much. I heard that the directors under his company recently signed a supplementary agreement. It is said that the treatment is very generous, but you didn't receive it. This shouldn't be." "Did it receive it?" Tangda smiled in his heart. He just didn't want to sign it. "So, even if I let you be my agent, what can I get?" Tangda asked half jokingly and half seriously. Carl immediately perked up and took out a contract he had prepared long ago and said, "It's very simple. If you are willing to come here, Tangda, I can apply for an absolutely superior agreement. Whether it is resources, fees, salary or the right to choose, I can give it all to you and let you decide." Carl knew that he, a marginal agent, had nothing, so he simply took out all his chips and put them on the table. "You can decide everything yourself." Tangda curled his lips to express his disbelief. "Of course. You can choose all the singers yourself. If you want to shoot, you can shoot. If you don't want to shoot, you can throw it to others. The salary will be calculated according to the industry's top, the largest share ratio that I can decide, and I will not interfere with anything on the set. Even if you increase the budget, it's okay, but I will review it. I can guarantee that the resources you can mobilize here are definitely more than what Mike gives." Carl finished speaking in one breath, staring into Tangda's eyes, trying to see his emotions. But no matter how he looked at it, he could only detect calmness. Even with such good conditions, Tangda did not rashly confirm it. He just nodded slightly. "Not bad, but to be honest, it's not much different from what I do with Mike." Carl couldn't help but feel a little discouraged. However, Tangda suddenly said, "But I think at least your attitude is more sincere than Mike's. I believe that if I am under your management, you will do everything to help me, right?" "Of course." Carl answered decisively. Tangda smiled and suddenly frowned. "But it should be troublesome to change agents. We must wait until the contract expires." "No. Tangda, as long as you nod, I will do it." Seeing that there was hope, Carl would not give up easily and took the responsibility directly. "Well, okay, Carl, you convinced me." Tangda thought for a while and stretched out his hand. Carl smiled instantly and held Tangda's hand tightly. When he came out of the restaurant, his steps were still a little shaky. He didn't expect that the thing he had been thinking about would be done so quickly. Although it was still a long way from the final signing of the agreement, because Tangda required him to terminate his contract with Mike first, it didn't matter. As long as there was hope, Carl would give it a try. He thought about it and looked at his watch. It was already his favorite tea time. But he didn't go home, but drove towards the direction of the CAA building. At the same time, Jimmy and Don were also talking about Carl. "Why don't you go directly to Vice President Johansson? Wouldn't it be faster to talk to him?" Jimmy was a little puzzled. Don shook his head. "No, Jimmy, it's actually very simple to change agents. As long as I am willing to break up with Mike, I can change at any time. But why should I be the first to speak out? And I want to take the initiative, especially the right to choose, so I must make Carla and Edinson think that they are asking me for something, that they hope that I will change my agent, instead of me rushing to beg them to sign me quickly. Only in this way will they give me the best treatment. Just like in a relationship, the party that pays more will always tolerate more, and retreating to advance will always be a win-win situation. It's really hard to understand. Jimmy still didn't quite understand. Tang smiled and gave him an example. Just like why I didn't say that Carl's conditions were better than Mike's, it was because I wanted to belittle him first, make him feel frustrated, and then affirm him based on his attitude. In this way, he will think that it was his own good work that changed my attitude, and he will work harder. Jimmy was stunned for a few seconds. Damn, you know so much? Just as he said this, Jimmy's cell phone suddenly rang. After answering the call, he said to Tangda with an excited expression, Tangda, our tobacco idea has been approved. Chapter 68 Photo album sells well. The photo shoot of the time cards had to be conducted in a tobacco growing area, which is North Carolina. So Tangda took Kaden on a plane to the area these 2 days, and only Jimmy stayed in the company. Another thing he was responsible for finally entered a critical step, that is, the photo album. Jimmy went to several publishing companies and finally selected a small publisher as a partner. Both parties paid half of the cost, and then published this photo album of Cindy Kaden in the swimming pool. Those large publishers took too much commission, and Tangda rejected several of them, because Kaden and Cindy were not well known, and even several companies could only publish at their own expense. So Jimmy simply found a small publisher and published it in the New York area first, and if the effect was good, it would be published throughout the United States. As a result, something he didn't expect happened. Just 3 days after the publication, several bookstores in New York were already calling to ask for goods. Pep. Ship it to me. I don't care how many are left, I want them all. Myerson, the owner of the corner bookstore, was holding his phone and shouting anxiously. He stood behind the counter and saw a circle of people around the photo album, picking up the books while discussing them. He saw that the dozen or so photo albums were about to be sold out. Of course, he couldn't let the opportunity to make money slip away from his eyes, and hurriedly asked the clerk to restock the stock, but more and more people gathered around the photo album. A bold black boy and a bespectacled boy squeezed into the crowd, looking at the photo of Kaden and Cindy holding hands and standing by the swimming pool in the photo album, and couldn't help swallowing their saliva. Madden, why do I feel that they look familiar? The bespectacled boy held his glasses, and the reflection of the cover reflected on the lenses. Madden patted his shoulder. Aren't those the lady from the clothing store and the lady from McDonald's? Oh, you mean the two people in Avril's MV? So sexy. I didn't expect them to be so sexy after taking off their clothes. Four Eyes stood on tiptoe, but could only watch through the gaps between the arms of others. He wanted to jump up and jump over the shoulders of the people in front of him. Madden had the advantage of height, and he easily saw the photos in the hands of others. It's sexy, but I still like Avril more. My heart belongs to her forever. Come on. Four Eyes was squeezed off the ground by others, and he looked up and sneered at Madden. Even if you were handsome, don't even think about getting close to Avril. She is mine. Look at you. You look like a little man in the land of giants. Oh, so pitiful. Madden stretched out his finger and flicked Four Eyes' forehead, then took advantage of his long arms to grab a photo album from the crowd. After paying the bill, the two walked out of the store. Four Eyes straightened his crooked glasses and stared at the photo in Madden's hand, saying, "Quick, tear off its damn clothes. I'm going to use my big, thick fingers to turn its body over." Hey. Man. You're too rude. Madden gently tore off the packaging and threw it into the trash can. This is a photo. It's art. You can't treat it like this. Although he said this, his hands were still honest and quickly turned the photo. Four Eyes leaned over and kept tiptoeing to watch. Wow. It's so exciting. Unbelievable. How did you take this angle? Madden kept muttering as he read, which made Four Eyes so anxious that he cursed directly. FXXK. Madden, move down a little. I can't see it. Don't be impatient, dwarf. Seeing his anxious look, Madden squatted down, and Four Eyes immediately leaned over. The two squatted on the side of the road to finish reading the entire photo. At the same time, several fellow brothers came over to share their impressions. Brother, how do you feel? Madden pursed his lips. This girl is so sexy. Four Eyes raised his head and said excitedly, My cow said it was going to explode. After he finished speaking, he found that several people looked at each other with strange expressions. What's wrong? Four Eyes frowned. Did your cow not react? It's a pity that he is so young. Okay, don't say any more. Madden quickly blocked his friend's mouth, fearing that the brothers would beat them up in the next second. Fortunately, everyone's focus was still on the photo, and they didn't pay attention to what he said. Several people continued to communicate. Look, I haven't seen such a great photo for a long time. This perspective, the sense of substitution from bottom to top, is simply too strong. He was talking about a photo of Caden and Cindy standing together and looking down at the camera. The perspective was as if someone was lying between the two of them, and the traces of skin tightened by the bikini and the heavy art could be clearly seen. I liked this one better. Four Eyes turned a few pages. He was talking about a photo of a naked back. Caden's naked back was facing the pool. You could vaguely see some curves, but you couldn't see the whole picture. The feeling of wanting to hide was really fascinating. No matter how many times you look at it, you will never feel bored. You always want to look at the details in the photo again. And there are many such photos. Everyone likes different things. So a group of old men who are excited stand on the street corner to comment on the photo, and from time to time they make obscene sounds, which makes passers-by look at them sideways. And gatherings like them can be seen in major bookstores and newsstands in New York. After watching, many buyers spontaneously recommend this photo album to their friends, just like what happened to New York underground art before, but this time it is completely the opposite. A large number of men who heard that this photo album is attractive enough either openly entered the bookstore to grab the goods, or secretly bought it without telling their wives and children. In short, it didn't take long for this photo album to become one of the top 3 sales in New York this month. On the night when sales soared, Tang received good news from Jimmy. Tang, our photo album is selling like hotcakes. Now the publisher has contacted several factories and they are working overtime to print. It's incredible. Although Jimmy knew Tang's ability, he was still shocked by the good results. Tang was also a little surprised. He didn't expect that the men in New York were so powerful. He thought it would take a week or two to attract attention. It seems that the publishing industry was really easy to do before the internet became popular. He was still a little conservative. Since it's selling so well, it means our strategy is right. Jimmy, let the publisher distribute the product nationwide. If he doesn't have the ability, give this photo album to other publishers, and we won't advance the money this time. Don't worry. Tang, they won't miss such a good selling photo album. Jimmy put his feet up on his desk. I guess those publishers who have talked to us are regretting it now, and they may come back to me soon. It doesn't matter, profit is the most important, as long as they make concessions on the profit sharing. Tang reminded. Jimmy nodded. No problem, profit is the most important. I will have a good talk with them about the profit sharing issue. After hanging up the phone, Jimmy hummed a little tune and came to the customer service area. Seeing that he was in a good mood, the pink-haired Lilina stood up with her feet hooked and said in a coquettish voice, "Manager, I heard that Caden's photo album is selling very well. When can I take a photo?" She put her arm around Jimmy's arm and rubbed it with her chest. "Don't worry, the boss has already said that you will be arranged after 1 month of sales of Caden and Cindy's photo albums." Jimmy happily enjoyed Lilina's personal massage service. "Great." Lilina hugged her arms tighter in excitement. Just as Jimmy was about to continue talking to her, ding-ling-ling, the company's phone suddenly rang. Jimmy took Lilina to the phone and answered it. "Hello. Hello. Is this Angel Declaration Agency?" "Yes, I am." "Oh, I'm from Wallace Publishing House, and I want to talk to you about the publication of that photo album." Jimmy turned his head to look at Lilina, and smiled silently after she winked at him. See, he was right. Those publishers who had discussed cooperation were like vultures that smelled blood, and they came here following the scent, but this time the initiative is in his hands. Thanks to Yu Guangzhengguo and Su Fijia for the reward. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 69 Happy Times. When Tang came back from North Carolina, he learned from Jimmy about the latest situation of photo publishing. The terms of the original small publishers were not very satisfactory, and among the several large publishers, Only the contract with the Wallace Publishing House was the most favorable, and promised to distribute the goods throughout the United States within half a month. So Jimmy and Tang decided to give the photo album to them and distribute it in areas other than New York. Now, just as the Shiguang brand cigarettes are about to be broadcast on TV, Wallace Publishing House has prepared the first batch of photo albums and delivered them to major bookstores and newsstands. Soon, Angel Declaration Agency will be able to feel the warm invitations from major magazines. In the evening, Tang and Jimmy sat in the lobby of the company. The lobby was dim. The employees had all gone home. Only the light from the TV illuminated the two of them. It was a large screen TV that was newly purchased 2 days ago. Since Jia's money was transferred to the account, the company has purchased a lot of commonly used equipment. For example, coffee machines, TVs, printers, etc. Of course, lawyer Kirk had already arranged to pay taxes on these payments. Tang didn't want to stand in court and face charges from the IRS one day. At this moment, they were waiting for the TV station to insert an advertisement. Yes, it was an advertisement for Shiguang brand cigarettes. Old Sommer spent millions of dollars on the TV station for this advertisement and bought an advertisement at the end of a popular TV series. This is a man's drama, violent, bloody, and full of brotherhood, so the viewers are very consistent with the profile of tobacco users, which is undoubtedly more conducive to the conversion rate of the advertisement. Tang and Jimmy ate popcorn while waiting. Not long after, when the show ended, the advertisement began to play. At the same time, men watching this drama all over the United States saw this advertisement, including Zach, who was annoyed by the crying of children. Zach was really annoying. He was recently laid off by the company because the overall sales performance of his team was not ideal, so he, the new guy with the lowest status, became a scapegoat. No one cared about his feelings, and no one really wanted to know the truth. Everyone believed that he was the only one who dragged the team down. But son of a bitch. He was clearly ranked 5th in sales performance, but he was only treated as an example because he offended his team leader. As a result, he has been in a very low state recently. Every day, apart from going to various companies for interviews during the day, he sits in the living room and watches violent TV series to vent his dissatisfaction. His wife has also quarreled with him several times recently, both because of the family expenses and because of his decadent mood all day long. Even at night, when he should have been alone, he had to be interrupted many times because of the presence of the children. Zach, get me a diaper. Zach, the baby is hungry again, get me a bottle of milk. Why is it so cold? Zach, how many times have I told you? The baby must drink milk at 104 degrees Fahrenheit. The thermometer is next to the bowl. Why don't you remember? Don't forget to wash the bottle after use. After Zach finished everything, he ran back to the sofa to see how the final suspense of the series would be solved, but he found that the credits had already appeared on the TV screen. He couldn't help but slam the sofa hard. FXXK. He raised his head and took a few breaths. He took out a cigarette from his pocket. Just by gently squeezing the limp box, he knew that he had finished smoking. SHXT. This fucking day. Zach vented his dissatisfaction with life helplessly, but his voice was always very low. He picked up the remote control and was about to turn off the TV and go out to buy a pack of cigarettes from the vending machine downstairs, but he saw an advertisement starting to play after the end of the film. Bright sunshine, this is the first impression of the advertisement. The charming scenery from North Carolina, the sound of the train whistle, and the agricultural machines that look full of industrial charm immediately attracted Zach's attention. He has always longed for this kind of life. He grew up on his father's ranch. However, after coming to New York, this idyllic life has been getting farther and farther away from him. The camera shots of the advertisement are beautiful, and the scenery is fascinating, especially the blonde girl walking in the flowers. She has a great figure. When she was wearing a white dress, standing on the train, holding down her straw hat with her hand and gazing into the distance, a gentle narration came from the TV. Happy times are baked. Then the familiar logo came into view. Baking, being blessed. Zach was slightly stunned when he heard this sentence, then he repeated it in his mouth, and then laughed dumbly. FXXK, I actually need an advertisement to comfort me. Zach was silent for a moment, turned off the TV, stood up and walked out the door, and came to the vending machine downstairs. When he saw the Shiguang brand cigarettes, he chose it without hesitation. But I really need blessings now. Damn, life is terrible, but I still have to live, right? Zach picked up the cigarette and tore it open skillfully. After lighting himself, he took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. Yes, it's the smell, so rich, it's indeed baked, blessed. Huh, I feel much better. That night, there were many people like Zach. Even if the blessings brought by cigarettes were only temporary false, people's blessings for their own lives were real. And when Tang just arrived at the company the next morning, he received a call from the tobacco company. The caller on the other end of the phone urged Supreme Creativity to sign a 3-year agreement with the company immediately. The reason for such a hurry was that in just one night, 10% of the cigarettes from all over the country had been sold. This data is 5% higher than their sales in the same period last month. But everyone knows that this is just the beginning. More people will see this advertisement soon. It is hard to imagine how much the sales of this product will increase. So they can't wait to let Tang host the advertising creativity. After Tang listened to the call, he immediately announced the good news to everyone in the company and promised to give all employees a full bonus at the end of the year. Jimmy and the customer service ladies cheered for a while. Tang watched them fooling around in the hall with a smile on his face. This advertisement undoubtedly proved that Supreme Creativity is indeed worthy of their slogan, the top creative provider in the United States. Moreover, the broadcast of these advertisements has also made Supreme Creativity's reputation firmly established in New York. However, Supreme Creativity is very proud of itself, and naturally some people are scratching their heads for this, such as Maroney of Lion Advertising and Hig, the creative director of IPG. Chapter 70, Reasonable Speculation. Why? Why can they be favored? Maroney was furious in his office. Opposite him stood the two players who were KOED in the friendly boxing match in the conference room, Phoebe and Torian. The two were still angry because they had not confronted Supreme Creativity head-on in the advertising campaign before. If it weren't for their dirty tricks, the tobacco company's advertisement should have belonged to us. Phoebe firmly believed that her creativity was impeccable. And Torian nodded in agreement. Yes, Supreme Creativity deliberately angered us and then sent us away with this despicable trick. The two chattered about their dissatisfaction, but Maroney felt like he was surrounded by two flies. Okay. Phoebe and Torian immediately shut up. Maroney frowned. I don't care whether Supreme Creativity used dirty tricks, I just know that we missed a huge opportunity. Phoebe, your bonus this month will be cancelled. Torian, your bonus will be halved. The two felt a pain in their hearts. But this is not the end. We will definitely have another chance to meet them in the future. Maroney put his hands on the table and stared at them angrily. If you are still like this time next time, you will all get out. Do you understand? Understood. Don't worry. Phoebe and Torian nodded hurriedly, and then left the office at Maroney's signal. Maroney sighed, sat on the chair and thought for a moment, then picked up the phone and called the contact named Figes. In the IPG conference room, the creative director Sig's face was as gloomy as the mud on the tire covered by the mud pit, and there was no trace of blood at all. On both sides of him sat Figes and the heads of advertising departments of various industries. Ross, who was in charge of food, and Gilmer, who was in charge of tobacco, were also in this list, but the difference was that Ross's expression was much more relaxed than before, while Gilmer was sweating profusely and nervously pinched his fingers under the table until they turned blue. Tell me, Ross. When the atmosphere was silent to the extreme, Sig finally spoke, but his voice was slightly hoarse. Because he had already lost his temper during the general meeting just now. And Gilmer's department, like Ross, had its year-end bonus cut in half. That's why our Ross was gloating. Sorry, Director, it was my strategic mistake. I thought that Supreme Creative had never been in the tobacco industry, so it shouldn't be. I thought. It shouldn't be. Do you know how much money we lost? Hundreds of thousands of dollars. 3 projects added up, millions of dollars. Is your annual salary that high? If Supreme Creative continues like this, do we have to hand over all the projects to others? FXXK. You. Sig pointed at the two people repeatedly. The board of directors has issued the final order. If you lose another project, resign immediately. Get out. He couldn't help coughing a few times at the end. These days, watching Supreme Creative's advertisements being broadcast on TV, he was really on pins and needles, as if something was stuck in his throat. If it continued like this, he would lose his position. In fact, If it weren't for the support of the board members behind him, he would have resigned and apologized. Damn it. Where did Supreme Creative come from? Why do they always compete with IPG for projects? Thinking of this, he turned to look at Figs and asked, "So how are you doing with the things I arranged for you?" Figs looked at Sig with some embarrassment. The staff of Supreme Creative is too simple. In addition to the founders Tang and Jimmy, there are only a bunch of customer service staff. They are not worth buying off at all. I heard that they are interviewing recently. I also asked someone to pretend to be an interviewer to visit their company, but unfortunately they are interviewing on the first floor and there is nothing there. Listen, I don't care. Figs, I just want the result. Whether it is Jimmy or the customer service, as long as they can provide us with information, it's okay. Go do it, understand? Sig's fingers slammed on the tabletop, almost poking a hole in the tabletop. Figs nodded, but we are not without progress. Gilmer contacted Tang and Jimmy's old club, Lion Advertising. The manager of this company, Maroney, has informed me of Tang and Jimmy's information. Here, you can see. He handed over a piece of material, and Sig took it to check, but found that the information on it was very brief. There was nothing worth noting except that the two of them had worked as lighting technicians on the set, and that Tang had a close relationship with the CEO of the Heinz Group. How is that possible? Figs, so your investigation results mean that the two of them started from scratch, relied on their creativity to get investment from the Heinz Group, and then in just a few months they became the hottest advertising creative company in New York. Sig had a look on his face that said, "Do you know what the hell you are talking about?" But Figs replied helplessly, "At least that's the case from the information in front of me." No, absolutely not. Sig shook his head, suddenly thought of something, and said, "Hang me. FXXK. It's definitely them." "What do you mean?" The others were stunned. Sig explained as if he had suddenly realized something. Hang Me has always been eyeing the New York market, and their business also overlaps with ours, but they have never competed with us. So they supported Supreme Creative just to hide us. How is that possible? If Supreme Creative can get such good ideas, why don't they use them themselves? Figs was puzzled. You don't know. Hang Me is fighting among themselves now. Their two presidents have been confronting each other all the time, and who knows who will be eliminated first. So they have been desperately looking for performance to prove their ideas, but look. They didn't send the best team for this tobacco advertisement, but only sent a few newcomers. Sig sneered. Why is that? It must be because a certain president knew that he couldn't compete with Supreme Creativity, so he just pretended. Gilmer frowned and continued, "You mean, Supreme Creativity was supported and invested by one of the presidents?" "That's right. If that's the case, then when Supreme Creativity becomes famous, Hang Me will take advantage of the opportunity to acquire it. Would that president be able to directly control Hang Me with his performance and join the management of Omnicom?" Sig clapped his hands. "That's right. Because Hang Me's internal environment has been very poor during this period, the president may be afraid that someone will poach his people and steal his credit. So he established Supreme Creativity under the guise of Tang and Jimmy, but there must be real talents behind them working for it. No wonder I lost." Gilmer suddenly realized and immediately felt it made sense. Only Ross looked confused. What about him? Was he affected by the fire in the city? Hang Me didn't have the accumulation of the food industry. But no matter what, this reason is at least enough to explain to the upper level. No one knows what Sig really thinks, and no one knows whether he really agrees with his own guess. Everyone only knows that he went to the board of directors after the meeting. When he came down, the troubles on his face were gone, replaced by a warm smile. It seems that his originally shaky position has been saved by him. At the same time, on the CAA side, Tang met Carl in the restaurant again. He brought Tang good news. Chapter 71, The Lost Dog. Tang, my boss, Vice President Edinson, has already helped you terminate the contract at the meeting yesterday. Carl laughed happily, holding a knife and fork and not caring about eating steak, and kept talking with his hands and feet. Yesterday at the daily meeting of CAA, Edinson compiled a list of collaborators who are currently idle, including directors, photographers, and personnel in various package services. He also denounced Brady for occupying too many resources but not being able to allocate them reasonably, resulting in many people not getting perfect services and having the idea of going elsewhere. Brady certainly argued that he was doing this to better select industry leaders and arrange them reasonably according to their abilities. But Edison threw another piece of evidence on the table, which was a copy of the contract that Brady had signed privately with some directors. I don't know where Edison got the contract from. However, although Brady was surprised by this matter, he was not afraid, because this thing is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it proves that he is ambitious and wants to control the resources under his own control. On the other hand, it proves that he is very skillful and can win over those directors. The president certainly wouldn't punish him for this, but correspondingly, since the matter was exposed and Edison had caught him, he had to pay a price. This price included Tang's contract. So I'm a free agent now, right? Tang forked the beef and stuffed it into his mouth. You can say that, of course, if you don't choose an agent, the company will send another agent to take charge. After Carl finished speaking, he stared at Tang with expectant eyes. He was very nervous at this time, a little afraid that Tang would change his mind. After all, there was no agreement between the two of them. If Tang didn't choose him, then Edison would definitely let his most capable agent come to take charge of Tang. There was not much time left for him. After Tang finished eating the steak, he saw Carl's anxious but smiling expression, and then he suddenly reached out his hand. Then congratulations on our happy cooperation in the future. Carl was overjoyed and shook Tang's hand directly. Happy cooperation. Then I'll leave first, you eat quickly, the steak is cold. Tang patted his shoulder and then turned to leave. Carl was the only one left in the restaurant. He excitedly used his fork to keep inserting and pulling out steaks. He had no intention of eating at all. His mind was full of the joy of success and the imagination of the future. At the same time, the atmosphere in Brady's office also dropped to the lowest point in recent times. Mike and several other agents sat on the sofa, looking at Brady with a gloomy face. They did not dare to breathe at all, for fear that they would be treated as a typical lesson in the next second. They already knew about Edison's attack on his boss at the meeting, and they had to admit that this move was very cruel. Taking out the secret contract in front of him was obviously telling Brady that there was a traitor among his agents, but could he investigate more than a dozen key agents one by one? Not to mention whether it would be troublesome. What if the investigation found that his subordinates betrayed him? Should they all be replaced? So Brady could only swallow his anger and looked at the agent present with a razor-like gaze. Then, when he saw the familiar hooked nose, he immediately asked, Why? Why haven't you assigned package services to Tang since Avril's MV? Mike's heart skipped a beat and he quickly explained, I have pushed several projects to Tang during this period, but he kept making excuses saying that the songs were not good enough or that he had something going on at home, so he refused to shoot. So you just leave him alone? Mike, you are his agent. You should be responsible for supervising him. But what are you busy with recently? Don't think I don't know. Brady's tone became heavier and heavier. You have signed 3 new directors and 2 photographers, and you have distributed all the package projects in your hands to them. What do you want to do? Just because Tang has a bad temper, you leave him alone? You think he will take the initiative to beg you for mercy, and then beg you to assign him a job? FXXK. Mike, now he's free, and those agents under Edison have got a piece of fat meat for nothing. He also rejected my agreement. Do you know what he said? Brady stood up and spat out word by word. He said he didn't feel valued. Instead, he felt threatened. Mike, because of you, he rejected me. He thought I was blackmailing him with the agreement. If he didn't sign it, I would take away his job. SHXT. You messed up everything. Brady's voice was deafening, and every word was like a war drum beating in Mike's heart, making him dizzy. He didn't expect that his unintentional bias would lead to the current bad results, and immediately the taste of regret and unwillingness permeated from the bottom of his heart. But there was no chance to make up for it. Brady immediately announced a new decision. Mike, since you are so busy, the directors in your hands will be handed over to Nuston. In addition, I will give you 2 months of vacation. You can go around and spend time with your wife and children. I don't need. Mike opened his mouth. His voice was a little hoarse. But Brady didn't pay any attention to his rebuttal. That's it. Now, congratulations to our agent Mike on his wonderful vacation. Wow. Everyone applauded Mike with a mocking smile. No matter what, there has to be a scapegoat for this matter. Everyone actually had a director taken away by Edison, but only Mike's Tang was highly expected by Brady. Now that Tang has left his company, Mike is of no use, so he can be used as a scapegoat. As for vacation, after 2 months away from the company, will there still be a place for him on the sofa in the president's office when he comes back? Mike knew this very well, but he was powerless to change the situation. He could only endure the mocking eyes of his colleagues and pick up his briefcase to leave the office. After he left, everyone quickly returned to their own state. After discussing the future strategy with his subordinates, Brady announced, "Since Tang is unwilling to stand on my side, the MV for M&M will be handed over to Joseph Carbon. Norden, I hope he will not let me down." Norden stood up. He was tall with light brown hair and blue eyes that looked gentle and charming because of his smile. He did not hesitate at all to meet Brady's expectations and said, "Don't worry, Joseph has discussed the content of the MV with M&M and hand-painted hundreds of pages of storyboards. I have to say that the creativity is amazing. This year's MTV award must belong to this song. That's good, it's not bad. Tang is as arrogant as a rooster. Let Edinson and others worry about it." Brady didn't know whether his words were psychological comfort or he really thought so. However, after he finished speaking, he immediately aroused a wave of echoes. What Mike had just said became the words of this group of people in an instant. But this guy who should have been recognized had left CAA like a stray dog. Chapter 72, Remarks on the Release. It will be on the shelf soon. Thank you for your support during the new book period. In fact, there are still many people I want to thank. Because I participated in the Golden Workshop of Yuan, many big guys have given me advice. The editor has also been paying attention to this book, giving me a lot of guidance and correcting many of my misunderstandings. But after thinking about it, I don't plan to say it here. Because I don't like to make any remarks before things are settled, and I don't like to set any flags for myself, as if everything is over when it is on the shelves. But in fact, this is just the beginning. After a long new book period, this book will finally have an initial result. Regardless of whether this result is satisfactory, it is like your own child. You can't just throw it on the ground and ignore it just because it was a little bit lazy when it was young. And the current results are higher than all my previous books combined, so I am still quite satisfied. I also believe that as long as I keep writing steadily, this book will have a good future. Therefore, all the words of thanks will be saved for the future, until the day when this book really comes to the fore, not now. After all, if you thank a few hundred words, but the result is that it is a sluggish release, it will be quite embarrassing. Back to the book, I have to state in advance that I have never studied abroad, and all my knowledge of America only stays on TV dramas, movies, materials and Bolivali. So some knowledge errors are unavoidable. If you encounter them, you can write them in the comment area and I will modify them in time. In addition, in terms of updates, it is still the same as before, with updates at 8 o'clock and 17 o'clock, with a minimum of 6K per day, and more codes and more posts. Because I am a part-time worker, I can't put all my energy on the book. I can only guarantee that it will be updated steadily and not be a eunuch. The rewards are also normal, 3 chapters for the leader, Silver Alliance. This is not something I can think of. Finally, it will be on the shelves on time at 12:10 tomorrow, with an update of 12,000. I hope you will support it. The first order is really important to me, please. Next, the sacrificial array is opened. The list of those who were sacrificed is as follows. Please go and watch if you are interested. Director, female stars want to improve too much. Author, Chen Wengdong. You can tell what the content is by looking at the name. Just go for it. My American Variety Show, starting from Banshee Town. Author, Red Tail Carp. More than 2 million words. If you like American variety shows, you can read them all in one go. I am brushing my attributes in the Underground Palace. Author, God Level House. A new book by an old author who took the class together. It's a sure thing. 3 Kingdoms. The Heir of Sleeping Dragon. My father-in-law is Guangguang. Author, Shenwen Benshin. An old historical author, not a studio, lol. Serving the country with loyalty. I have full attributes to resist Korea. Author, 5 Points Imagination, not a studio. The author has been a true king for 8 years. Please give me acupuncture. Young master. Author, Zhu Wu. I named it. I asked the young master for acupuncture. Lu Mingfei, who returned from the dead. Author, Yeban Dujian. Lu Mingfei fanfiction, with over 10,000 high subscriptions. Chinese entertainment, the daily life of an actor in the circle. Author, Yang Bankson. As long as the sisters need it, it's alright. Chinese entertainment, I really don't want to cohabit with the queen. Author, Citrus Garlic. As the name suggests, my backroom sandbox author, Billo Kinksy, a very niche subject, but I'll like it if I get on the airwaves. The hero of a certain Hong Kong variety show world author, Kinking wants to write words, a lot of fun, mysterious hotel. After inheritance, I became the Lord of the Ghost Den author, Milk Bottle Giant. Main story about deceiving ghosts, immortal cultivation, a small opportunity everyday author, eat against the wall, easy immortal cultivation, mysterious era, building a secret cult organization from scratch author, Nashaya, my blind spot in knowledge. I only know about the secret cult simulator, Rebirth, the long-coveted King Me also likes me author, Cabbage is not me, the god of love. At the beginning, he broke up with the Empress, and the goddesses were so happy author, Bing Tang Fi Chang, putting harem and love together is really a bad taste. Immortality, starting from raising chickens author, Dong Hei Yu Tao, 2 million words on immortality. How can I write 2 million words? I just want to live forever author, what to eat every day, an old masterpiece, every knife is fatal. The great sage Shen Gongbeo persuades the immortal to die author, Kang Hei Changjin. You can tell it's cool just by looking at the name, Tokyo Girlfriend picture book author, Zhou Huanghizi. Ahem, I have prepared the toilet paper, it's over. I am surrounded by female supremacists author, I have saved the manuscript, Harem Young Grass, I am immortal in history author, Momo Eats Mom, daily immortal history article, the husky in it is quite cute, Rebirth of Leisurely Joy author, Bujian Liu Bujian Qing, warm and daily urban article, the writing is very good, the kind I can't write. Chapter 73 What a surprise! After Tangda and Carl confirmed the new contract, they returned to the company. However, as soon as he entered the door, Jimmy mysteriously pulled him into the office. In the office, Lilina, who was dressed exquisitely and beautifully, was sitting on the sofa. She was excited and uneasy, using her long nails to pull up and down the black stockings on her knees. She let go of her stockings only after seeing Tangda come in. Boss. She stood up and waved at Tangda, and then watched Jimmy explain to Tangda, who was puzzled. Tangda, you must not have thought what happened. Jimmy's expression was mysterious, nervous and excited. But Tangda thought about it and realized that there was no big thing in the company recently. Several advertisements were successfully landed, and they were just waiting for the money to arrive. The new advertisements were still under negotiation. The company's focus at present was recruiting people, and they had to find suitable sales talents and agents. He interviewed a lot of people in the past few days. Finally, after a lot of trials and tribulations, he had recruited 2 people who seemed to be more suitable at the moment, and they would start work next week. But the recruitment will continue. After all, the company has indeed reached the time to expand, and it can't always be done by 2 people. What happened? So Tangda was indeed aroused by Jimmy's curiosity. Jimmy leaned in and whispered, someone wants to bribe the company's employees and then secretly leak the news. Tangda raised his eyebrows, really? Although he thought that other companies would come to investigate him, he didn't expect that they would actually start to bribe them directly. It seems that the sudden rise of Supreme Creative has touched some people's cake, making them unable to sit still. Without even thinking about it, Tangda could think that it must be done by an advertising company. He looked at Lilina, so you are the one they want to bribe? Yes, oh no. Boss, I received their call. Lilina walked closer and lowered her voice, no longer in her usual coquettish voice. This afternoon, I suddenly received a call from the manager of a consulting company, saying that he wanted to inquire about the company's business. Then what? Then I introduced the company's current advertising services, but I didn't expect that he wanted to know more after listening, so he asked me if I was willing to provide some irrelevant information and hinted that I could get paid. That's simple. Tangda shrugged and took a sip of the water cup. Lilina nodded like a chick pecking at rice. Yes, that's all, but I think he definitely has bad intentions. So I told the manager immediately. I see. Tangda thought for a moment and said, when you go out, pretend nothing happened, and then when they call you again, agree to it. But if they ask you for specific details, you can make up a few names and information for him and ask them to give you some money. Okay, I understand, then the money. Just keep it. Tangda didn't care about the consulting fee of at most a few $100s, and directly promised Lilina. Okay, boss. Lilina's mouth corners curled up obviously. In addition, I am very happy to see that you care so much about the company, which shows that you are a good employee. Lilina, next month, when I have time, I will take a set of photos for you, and think about what clothes you should wear. Thank you, boss. Lilina has been looking forward to this photo for too long. You know, now Kaden and Cindy are already famous. Even occasionally they will be recognized on the street. Many companies came to Angel Manifesto to discuss cooperation, and several magazines have invited the two to shoot covers together. She boasted that her figure and face were not inferior to the two, but seeing the two people becoming famous quickly, it was impossible not to be anxious. But because of this, Lilina would not sell out her supreme creativity, which was her guarantee of fame. Okay, go back to work. Don't tell anyone about the consultation. Of course, you can tell about the photo album. Okay. Lilina smiled even more, dragged out a long tone, and then walked out of the office. Seeing her leave, Jimmy turned his head and asked, "Why did you ask Lilina to agree? Do you want to spread some false information?" Tang pulled open the blinds, looked at Lilina's excitement after returning to the customer service area and sharing her joy with others, and replied, "That's one aspect, but more importantly, do you think other people will receive the same call?" Jimmy then realized what Tangda was thinking and took a breath. Hiss. "You're right, Tangda, if other people knew about it but didn't say it, that would be terrible. Although they are just customer service staff, all customers are placed on our table after passing through them. If they deliberately conceal it, we will have a headache." Jimmy came to Tangda and looked out the glass with him, but his expression was a little anxious. "Then what should we do?" Tangda smiled and comforted him. "Don't worry, Jimmy, this is just the worst case scenario. In fact, don't think the enemy is so powerful. I think Lilina may be the first customer service representative to receive the call. After all, it is difficult for them to find the internal list of the customer service team. If they really have it, they would not ask Lilina for the personnel list of the company. I suspect that Lilina accidentally leaked something, which made the other party target her. Okay, then I'll ask her later." As soon as he finished speaking, the girls in the customer service area saw Tangda and Jimmy, and they immediately smiled and blew kisses to them. After Tangda accepted it with a smile, he glanced at Jimmy's serious expression and patted him on the back. "Dude, cheer up, remember, despise the enemy. And since they are doing such sneaky things, it means they are already scared. We should worry about them, not us." "Yes, Tangda, you are right." Jimmy grinned. His smile was like a hyena that has spotted its prey, with a bit of creepy meaning, and said viciously, "I will definitely find the guy behind it. That's it, as long as we continue to succeed, sooner or later they will jump out like clowns in the circus and become fun." After the chat, Jimmy went to deal with the things that Tangda had told him, and Tangda received a call from Carl. On the phone, Carl told him that Edinson wanted to fight for the director's rights for Eminem's new song for Tangda, but unfortunately Brady and his team had taken the lead and had already decided on the director with Eminem. The director's name is Joseph Carbon, which sounds like an ordinary white name. But Carl said he was not American, but Korean American. Obviously, this was the fastest rising MV director under Brady. Like Tangda, he had also proved himself through his strength. But this was not important. Tangda was more concerned about his next resources. But Carl could not make the decision because Vice President Edinson planned to talk to Tangda in person tomorrow morning. When Tangda arrived at the 27th floor of CAA building in the morning, he found that Edinson's office did not have too many luxurious decorations inside, nor did it have a golf course. Instead, it was full of baseball elements. For example, baseball bat decorations and baseball player dolls on the desk. Especially the baseball cap on the wall. The unusual dark green color with the overlapping NY letters was particularly eye-catching, and you could tell at a glance which baseball team this vice president was a fan of. "Hello, Mr. President." Tangda shook hands with Edinson and sat down with his warm smile. With neat black short hair, a strong body, and rough but powerful hands, Tangda could tell from just one encounter that this vice president must love sports. Maybe he was a baseball player in college. After Edinson sat down and saw Tangda's eyes drifting back, he immediately turned his head and said with a smile, "New York Yankees. This is my favorite team. I can see that you should go to the games often." "Yes, I watch every game, especially the Subway War. As long as you are a New Yorker or a Bronx person, you can never miss it. The home stadium of the New York Yankees is in the Bronx, and the Subway War refers to the New York Yankees versus the New York metropolis, because the home stadiums of both teams are located next to the subway station, and fans can take the subway directly to and from the stadium. This is also one of the famous games in New York. Tang smiled when he saw his salesman-like look, but did not continue to talk. Perhaps Edison also realized that he had strayed from the topic, so he coughed and changed the subject. Tang, I know. Actually, I don't have as good music resources as Brady. In fact, I was not in charge of the music section before. But it doesn't matter. Since you are willing to come, I will leave the best projects to you, but there is one thing. Edison put his arm on the table, pointed a finger in the direction of Brady's office, and said bluntly, my only request is to mess up his business. Don't let him achieve his desired goal, just this one request. Tang raised his eyebrows slightly. He heard anger and disgust in Edison's words. Although he didn't know what Brady had done to anger the heaven and the people, there was no doubt that the two vice presidents were like water and fire. After saying his request, Edison continued, of course, I won't force you, Tang. Whether you can do it or not, I will give you what you deserve, such as this. Edison handed over an agreement, but unlike Brady's so-called overlord terms, this was a package service agreement. Tang took it and looked at it carefully, and found that the service content was actually a movie from Miramax Film Company. Chicago. Tang slowly read out the name of the movie, his eyes slightly widened, and the memory in his mind suddenly turned silently like a precise clock. This name is really well known. Because this musical film is not only a Golden Globe Award winner, but also the winner of the 2003 Oscar for Best Picture. This is really a great gift. Tang immediately realized that Edison was in charge of the film section before he moved to the music section. I didn't expect that after I moved to Edison's company, I would have such a surprise. Chapter 74 Competition for the Grand Prize. After his thoughts were turned, Tang really wanted to blow a whistle to celebrate, but under Edison's gaze, he remained calm and continued to look down. Assisted photography. That's right, Tang, although I really want to help you fight for the position of principal photography, unfortunately, your works are not enough. Tang nodded, thinking that this result was already very good. The photography and other important positions of such large-scale movies are generally designated by the director himself or the film company. Even if CAA's packaging service is used, the film company will determine the candidates based on their resumes. Being able to join the lineup of the movie Chicago is already the best effort Edison can make. In comparison, Eminem's MV pales in comparison. After all, he has a lot of new albums, and he doesn't need the opportunity to shoot this MV at all. Tang quickly signed his name on this package agreement. There is another one. But it's not over yet. Edison took out a new package agreement, which was the shooting plan of Avril's new song MV. Tang will be the director and photographer of the MV. This was already discussed. Since Avril's new song was so popular, her company would not be willing to change people to shoot it. Tang happened to be free recently, so the job was given to him again. After signing all the agreements, Edison smiled and stretched out his hand. Then I wish you a smooth shooting, Tang. Thank you, Edison. After feeling his strong arm again, Tang turned around and walked out of the office. After getting on the elevator, his slender fingers tapped on the golden paint surface of the handrail like playing the piano. Edison thought so much of him, so he naturally had to return the favor, and the goals of the two were the same, right? Since he chose to change his agent, whether he was voluntary or forced, he had become a nail embedded in the wall in the eyes of the other party, and he would be a target that would be suppressed sooner or later. If Edison did not consolidate his position, his agent and contract would be swallowed up by Brady sooner or later. However, people like Carl should be more worried. Tang himself did not have to worry. As long as he had enough works, it would not matter if he left CAA. So he can attack or defend, and he is already in an invincible position. But as the saying goes, America does not support idle people. If you want to get better resources, you have to constantly prove yourself. It was the case before and it is the case now. If Tang can dampen the enthusiasm of Brady's side, that is naturally what Edison wants to see most. It can also make him more willing to tilt resources to himself. So Tang does not intend to miss this opportunity, and the opportunity at the moment is naturally Avril's new song. Carl has told Tang in detail about Joseph Carbon and his agent Nostin. Although they don't know who spread the news, they already know that Joseph's new MV for Eminem is aimed at the MTV Music Video Award. MTV Music Video is one of the important awards in the American music scene. Various Best MVs and Best Directors are selected every year. Many new directors have emerged from this award and have jumped up to become film directors. In the original world, Joseph became the best director with this MV, became famous in the industry, and began to enter the film industry. Although the movies he made afterwards all flopped, there is no doubt that this is indeed an award that can convince investors and producers. But now everything has become uncertain, because Tang also has his eyes on this award. Avril's new song is a rock song SK8 Boy, which ranked 10th on the Billboard Hot 100 singles chart in the previous life. In comparison, Eminem's song Without Me is much stronger, ranking 2nd on the Billboard Hot 100 singles chart. And to be honest, the MV of Eminem's song is indeed very well shot, not because of how strong the technical skills are. It's because the song itself contains all kinds of memes, and the MV is also shot in a spoof American comic style, which just fits its own temperament. It is well known that memes are easy to resonate and spread. So if you want to beat it head-on at the MTV Awards, you need a more novel and powerful shooting form and more eye-catching pictures. Tang was thinking while driving, and when he was waiting for the red light at an intersection, he suddenly saw a child running on the sidewalk chasing a floating balloon. He followed the boy's route and found that the balloon was floating between the buildings. It was blown close to the graffiti on the wall by the wind, and suddenly exploded for some reason. Pop? Although Tang couldn't hear the sound, after the scene, a spark of inspiration suddenly ignited in his mind. He thought of the idea of the MV. Tang excitedly turned on the radio and thought with the passionate rock music. He planned to borrow the stop-motion animation form of Coldplay's song Every Teardrop is a Waterfall, which would win the MTV award in the future, combine with the American comic style, and add explosions and fireworks to have a crazy concert on the city streets. He was confident that the effect of combining these styles would be greater than the sum of the two. That's right, let's do it. Tang stepped on the accelerator and headed straight to the company, intending to record it while the inspiration was still there. 3 days later, Tang met Avril and the crew in the CAA office. Avril came up and hugged Tang and greeted him happily, not caring about other people's expressions at all. Fortunately, her band didn't come today, otherwise who knows what other people's expressions would be. She was still dressed simply in a white t-shirt today, with a cheerful expression. Even the tiring tour schedule did not affect her vitality. Tang exchanged a few pleasantries with her, and then officially started the MV shooting meeting. However, it was called a meeting, but in fact it was Tang's one-man show, because Carl had communicated with the crew in advance, and everyone also learned about Tang's temperament from their own channels. The most important thing is that he is the photographer and director, and other people in the crew really have no say. Tang took out a stack of storyboards from his bag and handed them to everyone, and then began to talk about his creative ideas on the whiteboard in the conference room. First of all, our shooting this time will start in a cramped room, the TV is creaking, and a middle-aged woman is sitting on the sofa. Tang took out the first piece of paper and pasted it on the whiteboard, on which he hand-painted everything he said. Everyone nodded, thinking that this way of explaining was really clear and easy to understand. Then this middle-aged woman. Tang methodically said all the creative ideas bit by bit. The story of this song is about a punk boy pursuing a ballet girl, but the ballet girl rejected him because of her friend's prejudice and arrogance. 5 years later, when she was feeding her child at home, she turned on the TV and found that the boy had become a big star, and she regretted it. However, although the original MV was very grand, with a hearty concert in the city center, it did not show this story, which was somewhat disconnected from the song itself. So Tang absorbed the good part and integrated the story of the song itself into it, supplemented by new forms and new ideas to make it look brand new. Just as he was talking to the crowd, the hands of the clock on the wall were slowly twisting their bodies towards the number 6. It tried to move forward bit by bit, not daring to slack off, and finally walked to the number 6 at the right time. Wow! Applause suddenly rang out, as if celebrating it. Tang, this idea is amazing. Assistant director Jose was not used to calling Tang by his first name or last name, so he just referred to him by his nickname. After he finished praising, others also began to praise him. That's right, Tang, jumping out of a helicopter. Wow, just thinking about it makes me crazy. And the building being blown up by fireworks, I'm already excited. I can't imagine how explosive this MV will be after it's filmed. It's just like a movie. Avril also looked at Tang with longing and excitement. Even though the filming of this MV has not started yet, Tang's words have already given everyone a sense of the picture, and the creative ideas and new forms in it make people feel numb just thinking about them. But in the midst of the celebration, A discordant voice suddenly sounded. But, what about the budget? A bespectacled stagehand raised his hand weakly, looking a little embarrassed. What? Hiss, this budget is indeed a bit high. Yes, can they give so much budget? Carl looked at the suddenly cooled atmosphere and turned his head to look at Tangda, only to find that Tangda was also looking at him. Can you handle this? Tangda asked him directly without any intention of lowering the budget. I should. Carl struggled a little. Although he knew that this idea would be great, he had no say in the budget. He had to report it and go to the other company to negotiate. Very good, then I'll leave it to you, Carl. But Tangda confirmed without saying anything, and seemed to have no consideration of the second method of increasing the budget. This made Carl open his mouth and close it obediently. In the next 2 days, Carl kept running between the two companies. Fortunately, Avril's company had planned to increase the budget this time. Because they saw the possibility of making a lot of money, Avril had just released her first single and it rushed to the first place on the Billboard. As long as the performance of the second single can rush into the top 10, the sales of the entire album will definitely explode, and everyone will choose to pay for the entire album because of the quality of the two singles. Therefore, after learning that the new MV was very creative, Avril's record company immediately spent a lot of money. So the MV of the new song SK8 Boy was successfully filmed, and the first scene was shot in a closed studio. This place was decorated by the art team as a home environment. A TV stood alone in the green living room, surrounded by messy ornaments and tables and chairs. The whole room looked messy and dark. One glance would tell how poor the owner's financial situation was. Avril, dressed as a middle-aged person and wearing a sloppy maternity outfit, was sitting on the red sofa opposite the TV, pressing the remote control while comforting the crying child in her arms. Jose, turn on the lights. Add another layer of paper, I want to create the feeling of sunlight. Avril, raise your head. You have to look at the TV with regretful eyes. The art team should dump some more garbage in front of the TV. I want a feeling of chaos. Avril, hold your baby. Don't open your mouth. Your teeth will show. Tangda sat in front of the camera as always, directing everything. His keen attention to detail made every crew member tread on thin ice. But this is just the beginning. The last 2 chapters are just chapter names that are wrong and will not affect the viewing experience. Chapter 75 Devil Tangda. In each of the following shots, Tangda would meticulously watch the crew complete them, and immediately pick up the loudspeaker to correct them when the crew made a mistake. He was like a wound-up spring, in a creative state that was both excited and serious. Because of this, no one dared to relax, for fear that they would be swallowed by the devil Tangda because of a mistake somewhere. Yes, in the crew of CAA's packaged service, Tangda's nickname, the Devil, has gradually begun to spread. Everyone who has experienced the hardships in Tangda's crew will spontaneously tell others about this trembling experience, and declare that no one can escape Tangda's scolding, just like no one can tame the devil. However, the photography assistant Hans thought this sentence was just a joke. Although Tangda acted very serious, in fact, he was not as scary as others said, and his words were not fierce. He thought this was a rumor and an exaggeration. Moreover, this is CAA's packaged service. The contract stipulates that the company must abide by various human rights agreements. Personal insults, racial discrimination and breach of contract are not allowed. Even if he does not do well, this contract must be fulfilled unless CAA intends to breach the contract. Then he could just sue CAA and get some more money. So during the whole filming process, he still maintained his usual attitude as in the crew, and treated other people in a rather frivolous manner, often asking the honest girl on the set to help him do things. Stage girl, come and get the camera. Wow, why are you glaring at me? What? Patting your butt is a way to show friendship. This is the custom in my hometown. Don't look at me like that. The director still needs the camera. Be careful. If it breaks, I won't pay for it. Are you smoking? Brother. Please, don't be so stingy. I just took 2 more cigarettes so I don't have to ask you for more. Sweep up these garbage. What? That's right, I made it accidentally. Please clean it up. When the filming started, Hans was absent-minded, thinking about the pink striptease yesterday. But because Tangda had never used him, he was also happy to be idle. It was only when the track was laid that Hans, the photography assistant, finally came in handy. Come on, scene 37, start. As the sound of the stagehand clapping sounded, Hans slowly pushed the track car forward. As he pushed, he felt an itch on his back, so he squeezed his shoulder blades back, and the strength in his hands suddenly loosened, and the track car slowed down slightly. The next second, Tang shouted, "Cut!" What happened? Hans? Why did the track slow down? Tang turned his head to look at him. They were shooting a surround scene at this time, and the camera had to rotate 360 degrees around Avril, so the whole process had to be smooth and smooth. Tang was very sensitive to the speed of the track car and could feel even the slightest change. Hans was stunned for a moment and evaded the call. "Sorry, director. The floor that the stagehand cleaned was too slippery, and I didn't use enough force." Tang frowned slightly and glanced at the ground, then stared at Hans, until he saw that he felt a little guilty. He said, "Then let's do it again. Stagehand, clean the floor again." "Okay." The stagehand obediently cleaned up the floor and continued shooting. Hans pushed the track car forward slowly, and Tang also put his eyes on the viewfinder, carefully observing Avril's performance. However, the next moment, he felt that the speed of the track car increased slightly. He didn't want to say anything. But Hans's movements became faster and faster, so the anger in his heart suddenly ignited, and he immediately turned around and said, "What are you doing? Hans, are you going to push the track car out of the country? Or are you going to learn from Apollo and let the track car land on the moon?" FXXK. Hans was a little scared by what he said, but he still pretended to be innocent and said, "Director, it's not my problem, it's the stage staff who didn't clean the track clean. I feel a little resistance." Tang narrowed his eyes. "Do you think I'm a fool?" What do you mean, director?" Hans pretended to be stupid. He didn't mean it just now. He was just thinking about which bar to go to watch striptease in the evening, and he didn't control the strength of his hands. In fact, he was already familiar with this kind of shirking responsibility. After all, pushing the track itself is a boring job. Generally, directors will not be serious about such details. As long as the speed is about the same, they can get away with it. But what he met at this moment was Tang, a devil who was extremely serious about creation. "Do you think I would let you push the track car if the track is not clean?" After Tang said this, the other people in the crew immediately nodded silently. That's right, although Tang is a tyrant, he will never use other people's problems to wrong the parties involved. For example, the lighting technician's light was at the wrong angle before, and he was ready to be scolded, but Tang didn't say anything to him, because he saw the state of the light when it was just set up, and there was no problem at all. So it can only be that someone else accidentally touched it and caused the problem. Such problems often happen in the crew. After all, there are many people and many hands, but Tang's eyes are as sharp as an eagle, as if he is always overlooking the overall situation, which is daunting. This is also the reason why everyone will not refute when facing Tang's scolding. After all, they know very well that they have indeed made mistakes, and more than once. But Hans was the new member. He had never experienced such a thing and thought he could get away with it. "I swear. The track was not cleaned. Director." Hans raised his hand confidently. The stagehand next to him immediately panicked. "No, director, I cleaned it." Seeing that both parties were unwilling to admit their own problems, Tang stood up. "Stagehand, unload the track car." Hans was slightly stunned and didn't understand what the director wanted to do, but the others had already obediently moved the track car off the track. Then Hans saw Tang take 2 steps in front of him, stretched out his hand and pressed his head. "Hey, wait. What are you going to do?" Hans was a little panicked and wanted to resist, but he didn't expect Tang's hand strength to be unexpectedly strong. After pinching his neck, he had no ability to struggle at all. "What are you doing? Look a little bit at a time." Tang pressed Hans to the ground and dragged him slowly forward along the track. "Shit, look carefully to see if the track is clean. Do you think I will give you a few more chances? SHXT. You should go back to school and learn what it means to tell the truth." Hans wanted to argue at first, "It's really not my problem, Tang." However, as Tang pressed his head and looked at the track bit by bit, he realized that Tang was not joking at all. The devil in those people's mouths is not a joke. This guy's serious and even ferocious expression and the blue veins on his arms are as terrifying as the devil from hell grabbing his soul and wanting to tear it apart and devour it. "So what else do you want to say, you liar?" After reading the track, Tang pushed him away and scolded, "You should feel sorry for this. It's because of your fault that everyone is standing here wasting time." Seeing Hans opening his mouth to speak, Tang waved his hand directly. "Get out. I don't need a parasite like you in my crew. Do you think I didn't see what you did? You son of a bitch, do you think this is your mother's belly? You can do whatever you want. You can't fire me. Hans retorted loudly in panic. I have a contract with CAA. It's useless for you to go to bed with CAA. Rubbish, this is my crew. I have the final say, Carl. After hearing this, Carl immediately jumped out from the side and handed the contract to Hans with a fake smile on his face. I'm sorry, Mr. Hans, because your performance does not meet the requirements of the package service contract. Please take this contract and leave here now. If you have any objections, you can ask your agent to appeal to the legal department of CAA. I will sue you and me in the union. Tangda, I will sue you in court. Fskskyow. Avril was the first to raise her middle finger when she heard this, and the band behind her followed suit, as did the crew members around her. Tangda shrugged and said, get out of here. Hans had no choice but to leave dejectedly. This temporary termination would greatly affect his rating at CAA, and he would lose more package services. The bottom-level employees of the crew were not as fearless as Tangda. They made money from package services. If they left CAA, it would be difficult for them to find a job. After driving away Hans, the fake, Tangda turned to look at the young stagehand. What's your name? My name is Greta Gerwig. The stagehand was a girl with short blonde hair. She was very rigorous in her work. Tangda admired such people. Tangda raised his eyebrows after hearing her name and continued to ask, did you graduate from Barnard College in New York? Yes, director. Greta nodded, not quite understanding why Tangda asked about her school. But she didn't know that Tangda, who was opposite her, had already been in a turbulent mood. I didn't expect it to be her. Tangda wowed inwardly, a little excited. Although this name sounds unfamiliar, if you talk about her works, you will definitely be familiar with it. The movie Little Women that received 6 Oscar nominations in 2019 was made by her. And The Lady Bird she wrote and directed herself was also nominated for the Best Director. She is one of the few female directors in Hollywood with both beauty and ability. I didn't expect her to be in my crew at this time. This is really a big surprise. Good job, keep it up, Greta. Tangda encouraged her and turned around to continue filming. Greta looked flattered. After all, no one in the crew had ever received Tangda's praise. Privately, many people said that Tangda might not know how to praise others at all. Therefore, at this moment, the way other people looked at Greta changed immediately. In the following filming process, some people even took the initiative to help her organize her things. Without the burden, the filming of the MV went smoothly. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.